So USARK is now also saying that it's okay to do whatever it is you want, regardless of the laws that we set in. So they're not policing anything. You know, it's just here. We'll tell you what the ban bills are. We'll ask you for money. Don't you dare email us because, you know, I don't know if you remember when they first put their Instagram page up, it said no DMs. And I kept tagging them like, so donations, yes, donations, no to DMs. And I kept tagging them and they took it down. So it doesn't say that anymore.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, how dare you, anybody, and this is just in general, how dare anybody ask somebody for money for a cause and then you don't want to talk to them? But if I were your buddies, these big names, as that's what everyone wants to call them, you definitely pick up the phone for me and hear what I have to say. So you're telling me my money is good enough, but maybe my ideas aren't. So the little guy isn't as important as the so-called big guy. But I've never seen one of those other guys able to do anything that I'm not able to do. We're still breathing the same air. We're doing this. Our foundations are the same. You may have more money than this person or less money than this person. You may be able to do stuff a little bit more extravagant, but you're still eating, sleeping, reproducing, and living on the same planet. So if you ask me to help you, then I should be able to talk to you. Right. And you know, how are you conserving things with your designer animals? Conserving your bank account. I'm pretty sure I said that on the last one. I'll say that. I say it all the time. You're conserving your ego, your money, and your channel, your YouTube channel, whatever it is, the fame that you've got.
Welcome back to the Animals at Home podcast. My name is Dylan Perrin, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, today I have a repeat guest coming on the podcast. That is Rain. He runs the YouTube channel, The Canis Codex. He's mainly canine focused at this point. He has a few different breeding projects of dogs that he's working on. We do talk about that a little bit at the beginning of this episode. But I do think this will probably be one of the more controversial episodes I've done in a while. Probably as controversial as the last time I had Rain on, and that is because Rain is quite critical of USARK. Now, in my opinion, I think organizations everybody has the right to criticize and critique organizations, especially if they're donor-based. You know, I think if you're a donor-based organization, there's a certain amount of transparency that is required in order for that organization to run efficiently and properly. Now, the sentiment that Rain discusses or Rain has and that he presents in this episode is not unlike criticisms that I hear all the time from people who are more on the animal welfare side of herpetoculture community. And that criticism is simply, we don't want to get stuck in the trap of fighting for the right to keep animals just for the sake of fighting for the right to keep animals, because that walks us dangerously far away from animal welfare. We don't want to have a position where we actually aren't concerned about the welfare position of our animals at all. We just want to keep the animals. And that is a very common issue that people raise all the time with USARK, is there's no well-defined area on their website or in their promotional materials that talks about specifically how animals should be kept. And if they are going to be the organization that represents reptile keepers, then they ought to have something concrete. Now, on their website, they do have a code of ethics and best practices and whatnot, but it is all quite loosely written to the point where it's open to interpretation. And I think most people can understand why that is. USARK has a ton of support from big-time commercial breeders that aren't necessarily following the latest animal welfare science. And if they were to take a stand against something like keeping in a completely opaque tub on a paper towel, which goes with animal welfare science, we know that is not the way to keep an animal. If they were to make a stand against that, then it would really hurt their donor base, which obviously is inherently one of the issues with a donor-based organization. Anyway, I think the criticisms are valid. I think USARK has had some incredible wins over the years. There's been some amazing things that they've done. I think the Steelman USARK, it's an immense job. There's always tons of legislation that they're trying to fight. They're trying to run off donations. It probably feels like whack-a-mole at times, where they're just, they defeat one case and another one pops up, defeat one case, another one pops up, and it's this constant treadmill they're on. It is just essentially a very small organization that has a lot to do. So I think the ideas that Rain presents in this episode could help inject more money into USARK or any organization like USARK, and that comes with a registration and insurance, especially the registration. This would allow us to behave and act more like other animal keeping organizations, whether it's dog keeping or horse keeping, etc., which would allow us to be more professional and organized and have way more money to work with when it comes to fighting these legislations. So it's not necessarily that USARK is a horrible thing. That's not what we're presenting in this episode at all. It's more so we're at a point where it needs to expand, and if we don't talk about welfare, then we lose credibility against when we're talking to mainstream folks who know nothing about keeping reptiles at all. So hopefully we'll see. This conversation should spark some interesting debate and conversation in the comment section on YouTube or on Spotify. If you're looking for more information on this podcast, make sure you head to animalsathomenetwork.com. If you would like to support the podcast financially, you can do that at patreon.com/animalsathome. And as always, thank you so much to Custom Reptile Habitats for sponsoring the podcast. You can find affiliate links in both the YouTube description and the show notes. Let's jump into this episode. Enjoy. All right. Well, Rain, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad that I could be back a second time.
Yeah, I think it was almost, was it a year ago? Pretty close to a year ago.
Pretty close. Pretty same hat, too. I made sure I...
the outfit matches. That's awesome. And so we have a bunch of different topics. I think we'll get into some areas that will be more controversial for people. You have strong opinions in certain areas that I think are worth talking about. And but first, let's talk about your reptile journey, because it's sort of coming to an end in some ways. This is kind of like your farewell tour to reptiles. So maybe we'll start there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a few decades since I started doing this. When I was 14 is when I did my first business. If you want to call it that. I mean, I was selling and breeding, but I didn't know anything about an LLC then. So it wasn't like official business, but I mean, I was selling and doing things like that. But yeah, man, I decided to let it go for a few reasons. I mean, the main reason is some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, and then some of the stuff what we talked about on the last show. I just hard to find it to be hard to be productive in a unstructured society or venue, or community. Let's say community would be a better word. So I actually, went back to canines. I'm still kind of helping my partner out on the end with moving some animals out of California, if we can rehome those. But that is the extent of my my reptile days. Well, I will say this: I have been out in the field. I've got my nice hook here. I don't want to let that go to waste. So I do when I get to go out to the mountains and to the lake, because I live very close to that. I do hit some of the trails and see what I can catch. And I'm still keeping. I'm just not breeding anymore, and I'm not really meeting any new people, I should say, as far as like giving out information. I've got enough going on right now, so I just kind of keeping it where it is.
Yeah. And as far as keeping goes, I know you have at least one. Is it a forest cobra? Do you have anything else, or?
Not here. No, I don't. That's just this big guy. And if you remember, initially my plans were to have a few of these guys, but couldn't find what I was looking for. And then I had a few guys that did have them, but they didn't want to sell to me because I'm not a member of USARK. So
interesting. Well, that'll be a good segue to our eventual. We'll get into USARK and the other, sort of, as you're saying, the sort of structure issues that we see in the reptile community. And now you are focusing on canines. Do you want to take a little, just a minute or two, just to explain the project you're working on there, just so people kind of have a better idea?
Sure. So actually, I'm working on two projects. I've got I've got one program running, and that's my Perro de Presa Canario program. And then I have recently started to develop a new program with a totally new breed, a very rare breed that most people have never heard about, from Argentina, called the Perro Pampas Argentino. So I have befriended the president of the breed club, Lisandro Libac. I actually was the first person to translate their exact information from Spanish into English and then do a video on it. And he saw it and he contacted me and we spoke, and I did a email interview with him. I sent him some questions that I had and other people that I knew that had questions about the breed. And then he, sent them back, and I did a part 2 to that video. So now the next step is to get the importing down and make the space, to bring in either a pair or one male and two females, because you can't create a line with one male and one female. It's not possible. So,
Right.
but at least even, just one and one will get me somewhere started. And then from there, I can kind of progress on. So I'm not stepping away from the Presa Canario. I'm just very intrigued by this breed. So it's something that I want, and I want to help the breed, because right now the breed isn't recognized outside of Argentina. So it has no other registries, no AKC, no FCI, no UKC. And so by me starting to import and introduce people to the breed, they've got negatives and positives behind that. The positives are that the breed it's definitely going to get recognized at some point, but the negatives are that sometimes when dog breeds come over to this country in particular, people like them so much, and then they want to start crossing them into other breeds. And this being a very rare breed is something that shouldn't, I'm not against making hybrids, but in this situation, you don't want to kill the gene pool before we even get a gene pool over here.
Right. Yes. Are those similar to the press as far as maybe like a herding type guardian dog, or?
Just a little clarification, just so people will know. So the Presa Canario, first and foremost, is a fighting dog, first and foremost, but obviously that's not legal. So it has crossed over. So in that sense, you could say the Pampas dog, and it's really funny because the term Pampas applies to two different things, and it applies to grassy lands in Argentina, but it also applies to a specific breed of horse that they have over there. And the dog is actually named after the horse and not the grasslands. So it is definitely a dog that you can use for guarding. It's very versatile, very rustic dog. So it does have similar attributes and characteristics of a Presa Canario, but not as, I would say, the prey drive isn't quite as high, and it's nowhere near as aggressive as a Presa Canario can be. That's labeled one of the most dangerous dogs in the world, for a reason. It's not a dog that you'd really want to use for police work unless you weren't trying to bring in the criminals. You were trying to tear them apart.
Yeah, they're big and strong.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's what I have going on with the canines right now. Is just there's not many lines of Presa Canario, so I'm working right now with the male and two females that I have, and a few other people, to start establishing some real solid lines, so we can get a set type, because you see so many different types within the breed, and then that causes a lot of controversy. And your dog's not this, your dog's not real, your dog's fake, this, that, and the other. So you got to deal with a lot of that stuff.
Right. So I think you have a lot of experience in the canine world, and I think a lot of your knowledge of structure comes from that world as well, like how well things can be run with the proper kennel and whatnot. But there's also, like, it's not perfect in the canine world, right? We have a whole section of the people who have dogs who just don't follow the structure, and they kind of go. So like, where does the structure go wrong with canines?
So it's funny that we always come to this answer when I get asked questions like that. Social media and the internet in its current form has fueled a lot of the nonsense in the animal world in general, more so particularly in the canine world and in the reptile world, because now things are not based on your experience or your knowledge. They're based on your followers. How many subs you get, how many likes you get on a picture. Doesn't matter if you know anything or not. I mean, I've heard guys blurt out total misinformation, but because they have 100,000 followers, you read the comments and people are eating it up. And then the ability. So, with reptiles, when you start to breed them, and then even when you hybridize them and you start creating lines, a few people that actually have lines of reptiles, true lines, it takes a little bit longer to see what your ideal snake will be, what you're trying to get, the product that you want. Where it's in the canine world, with mammals in general, it's a lot faster. The genetics cross over a lot faster, and you see it, and then you can kind of manipulate it again and again and again and again. So, now we have a thing called breed backs. And it's basically where it's like with the Frenchies, you'll take a dog that doesn't come in one color, and you'll find a dog around that size that does come in that color, breed it, then you breed it back to a Frenchie. You keep those puppies that are that particular color, and you continue to breed it back to get the DNA to a certain point, like your embark test and things like that. If the DNA is 87.5%, it's considered a pure breed. I don't follow that. If it's not 100%, it's not a pure breed to me.
Right.
Because 87%, what is that? A B plus? That's not an A plus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On a test that's passing, but it's not the ultimate grade that you can get. But so people use that a lot as excuses to do what they do. But we do have people who are developing, their own breeds, band dogs, and they are giving them names and they are giving them standards. But the AKC and these other places, they can only police them so much. And even at this point in time, I'm not really seeing that they are policing anything because, but I guess it's really to the point. They're like, dude, we have millions of people, that sign registration papers and pay for them on an annual basis. And this is for every registry worldwide. So it's like, you can't really, how are you going to really you have to go through with a fine comb and be like, oh, this guy's breeding Merle dogs. Give him a call. Like, hey, look, if you don't stop, you're not going to get paperwork from us anymore.
Right.
That type of thing. And it's a lot of work to do that. So cash is king. They make money and the sellers make money. The buyer is generally the most or the least uninformed, I should say. And a lot of them do selective research, which is a problem. They look at, oh, the dog's going to get this big. Oh, they're the colors I like. And then that's it. They don't understand that, color goes with code and health and temperament. All that stuff coincides with each other. It's not important to a lot of buyers, and some buyers it is important to. So, they're like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want anything tied to that. I don't want any Merle or I don't want any lilacs in my program, because the dilutes tend to carry skin problems and eye problems and ear problems and things like that. And some of that stuff is kind of inherent in a few breeds and you just can't get rid of it.
Right.
So, like the Dogo Argentino, because it comes in one color, and that color is well, really, it's not white is not technically a color, but it comes in white and that's it. There are no other, colors. We'll just say that for the argument's sake of that breed. So, if your genetics, that dogs that have no pigmentation on their ears can, be inherently deaf and pass that on to whether a dog can be both in both ears or one ear or no ears at all. So that breed didn't become as popular as it could have been. Now it's starting to pick up a little bit. And it's funny, the Pampas has actually got a big Dogo Argentino influence because it is also an Argentine breed, but they have gotten rid of the deafness, at least as of right now. When you start to line breed your dogs, that's when you start seeing a lot of the traits that you don't like. Because right. Now you're bringing them out by breeding back and distant inbreeding and all that good stuff. But you have to do that in order to get a solid type. So that's where we are with the canines. It's about funky colors, followers, and $50,000 for this little dog that someone breaks in your house. He ain't gonna do nothing for you. Probably gonna lead them. No,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's gonna take you to your
You're gonna take
money.
him to the money.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is, I think you're right. Like, there's that social media influence, which we obviously see on the reptile side. What, at least on the canine side, there is structure that can be implemented. So for people that really want to do things properly, there's a system in place for them to just file in place and go, okay, I'm working with these. I have a real strict standard I'm going to follow. I'm all about the health of the animal, the robustness and everything. Where on the reptile side, if you want to do that, there isn't anything to grab onto right now, right? We're lacking. It's just everything's kind of floating in the air. Even if you have somebody who's really ethical and they want to produce a really robust animal, it's hard. You have to start completely from scratch with pedigrees and everything.
Unfortunately, in most cases, that's what you're going to deal with. Like, there's nothing to grab onto. And then the fact that a lot of things that are needed in the community are frowned upon for the dumbest reasons. I've heard some I hate to say it like this, but some very moronic replies that I've got, in the last 5 years. And you're familiar with the project, obviously, because I talked about it on your channel. And a lot of people, knew about it. And it's even come back up in other people's podcasts, that I talk to on a regular basis, with USARK, representatives.
Mhm.
And it still kind of got the same response. So there's,
For people who didn't listen to the first one, can you quickly explain what that was?
Sure. So about 6 years ago, I started working on a project that would basically bring the exact same structure that the canine world has as far as your registration, your transfer of ownership papers, locking in insurance with companies, and that way getting discounts and the viable insurance needed for reptiles, and that will work for all keepers and not just some, because Nationwide does provide health insurance. But if you've got a ton of animals, it may not work for you. So I wanted, and I understand that being a reptile keeper. So I, locked in with some guys, and they were willing to help me out, but I didn't get the support that I needed, unfortunately. But I also attached an app to it that worked much like Instagram and Facebook, but solely for reptiles. It was private. You needed a code to get in and out. It worked in real time, so you could communicate with people right then and there. Many options, buy, sell, and trade, and it was free to use. I was not, asking anyone. I was paying for it out of my own pocket. There was a domain attached to it. The only thing that was offered was a service, and the service was that you buy papers for your reptile, and then that way we can start a reptile database with stud books. And then, myself and other people would maintain those things. And when you needed to send papers out as you bred your animals or you added more animals on, that, you would come back to us and we'd put it in the computer and we'd get the paperwork out to wherever it needed to go. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind that was so that you don't have to ask for donations, providing a service that is much needed. You have to pay for there's nothing free out here. You know what I mean? And I just, if you're paying 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 for one single animal, I guess for me, common sense says that why would I not want to get it insured if I can?
Yeah, you have insurance on your car.
Well, you can't even have a car without insurance.
Exactly, yeah.
A house, you have insurance on yourself. I mean, that, I guess you don't have to have that, but most people have it. A good amount of people have it. It comes in handy. Even though you pay into it and then you still have to pay, but
yeah.
But I think you guys got free healthcare up there, right? Or you used to, kind of.
Yeah, we do have. Technically, it's free, but
you kind of pay for it ahead of time.
Yeah, it's expensive. Right? our taxes are really high.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So you kind of already pay for it ahead of time. There.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is what really happens. And here it's like the option of like, oh yeah, we'll let you keep some of your taxes, but health insurance is high. So if you don't get it, now you're going to be paying, you ever get you ask them for an itemized bill, which that is your right to ask for an itemized bill. And they never want to give them to you, but they have to if you continue to ask. And you're like, damn, why'd you charge me $500 for a Band-Aid? Like,
oh yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
I know my mom has looked at an itemized invoice from an American hospital because she works for an insurance company, and she saw, I think it was an Advil, a single tablet of Advil.
It's like $100.
Yeah, it was $90.
It was $100. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's crazy.
For sure.
But yeah, it's true. I mean, I think there is a need for an insurance, and it's funny. Anytime there's an atrocity in our hobby where maybe something starts on fire and a collection goes down, you always message me and say, should have had insurance. And I'm like, well, yeah,
well,
then
they're on GoFundMe begging. That to me, that's begging. You're begging, whether they want to call it that or not, that's what it is. And the reason I call it that is because if you're not supportive of things like that, whether it's from me or you or whoever else, you should be filing claims with your insurance company. You shouldn't be on GoFundMe begging for money for your irresponsible behavior.
It could have been a cleaner transaction if it was insured. You throw the claim in. It's always a heartbreak when you lose animals. Right. At least there's steps in place for it to.
Right. Well, even in that sense, I don't know how this would have worked, but it may have worked in the benefit of that FWC incident. Well, you don't want to kill those animals. They're insured.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? Like if you kill that animal, I think I got like 20,000 on each one of those. You kill 32, I'm going to get a nice payout. You know what I mean?
Well, and the insurance companies will come and they'll say, hey, you're not killing these animals.
Too. And that's another thing. That's why insurance is very important, because if, people watching this, if you think for a minute that if you just had 50,000, 60,000 people paying into insurance at $500 or $600 a year. I'm sorry. That's tens of millions. That's like 30, $40 million a year just from a small portion of the reptile community in this country alone. But then why would you not want to take that international? I mean, dude, I'm a big thinker. I like big money. I like big things. I like big vacations. I like, so I think the same way. If you think big, you get big. You know what I mean? You think small, you get small. And right now they're thinking small, so they got small fries. That's what they got. Now, I'm talking about, hundreds of millions of dollars a year coming into the reptile community for registration and insurance. You think an insurance company is not going to go to bat for you? They're not going to want to. I wouldn't want to lose that money if I was an insurance company.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
absolutely.
without a fight. Not without a fight.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of pull, that's for sure. And as far as the registration goes, I think, is it true that the Green Tree guys are actually starting to potentially want to implement something because they're maybe a little more organized? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah. So the Morelia guys in general, the carpet guys and the Green Tree guys and some of the Diamond Python guys, they've been keeping records for a while. Nothing official that anyone else couldn't do. And it would be great if everyone did it and you had a registry, because then you could just send that in and make it a lot easier for the person running the registry. But they are trying to, and they did mention a registry recently on a podcast, via some guys that I talked to via what we're talking about now. But it was kind of in a way laughed at,
right.
And the reply for that and the insurance was the same. Which was, I just like, man, I guess I'm the only one paying attention to this properly. But when you literally laugh something off like that, and then you say, on down the road, when it's USARK's been around 30 something years, dude, since 94, 95, 96. I don't know the exact date, but I know it's one of those three. I was in high school. It's 30 years. Yeah. And we don't have these things. And then when asked about it, it's like, well, some people have 1,000 animals, why, that's like kind of smart. I'm like, okay. And that's all the more reason. I know people that have 100 dogs and they're all insured. What are you saying? I don't understand the point that you're trying to diffuse. Like, but look, listen, anyone listening, you can go and watch these things. I'm not just, talking out of the side of my neck. I don't do that. And then when asked about the insurance, because they weren't aware that Nationwide even offered insurance, to me, I'm sorry, man, that's pretty pitiful that you are working for the voice of the community and you don't even know if we have or don't have options. So you just say that there is none. And then when I corrected them, was like, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, I don't think it's for health insurance. No, it is health insurance. It is health insurance. And if you did your research, you would know that. Yeah. So, I mean, these are the people that are backing, you guys. So I'm just, man, I mean, I hate to do that, but it's, people need to know this stuff,
Well, and it is interesting. Like, I partly, I think it's just because we've never had it in our hobby, right, or within the community, that we just assume that it can never happen. But then you look at dogs, cats, horses. Everybody has registration. Everybody has and insurance.
Everybody has it. I mean, so let's scrap insurance. The registry is one of the most important things you can have, because it now gives you and we said this before when I said, Dylan, do you have any paperwork on any of those animals that you have? And you said, no, I don't. And I don't either. And no, neither does anyone else. And when I say paperwork, I mean, as far as not invoices, I mean, as far as something to say that you, Dylan Parent, own each one of those individual animals. If you ever had to go to court for whatever reason, was when you get in trouble with the dog and you have papers, they want to see that. If you don't have papers, if the right lawyer can do some tricky stuff to that person with not pay. Well, Your Honor, this guy's irresponsible. The dog isn't registered. He doesn't have insurance. I don't even know if he really owns the dog because he can't prove it. Now you have this transfer of ownership that would go to however many people it transferred hands to. If you sold it to me, then I pay the $5 or $10 fee to get it put in my name. If I sell it to someone else, or then when you have your clutches, each one of those gets a file that goes along with it. You'll fill it out. You send it back to the registry, because see, now this is the service. This is one of the services that is being provided. So I don't have to ask for donations because you're paying into this.
You're getting something. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this could have literally brought in $100 million a year easily if it's by fact that, and anyone who wants to go and look this up, FCI, AKC, UKC, horse registries, I don't know them all offhand for the horse and the bird and the rabbit registries and the other rodent registries, but I can tell you for sure that the canine registries and the horse registries bring in, individually, AKC brings in about $60 million a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money versus, you go and take a look at the reptile organization's donations. They make what they've made in total from that, what they've got from 2008 to 2021, they've made that in a year.
Yeah.
So they get stuff done, and they have had cases come against them, and they do really go to bat, but they go to bat. And then sometimes you don't even know they went to bat because you didn't even hear about it, because that's just how much reach and how much money they have. And that's, at the end of the day, legislation is about money. Cash is king everywhere.
Yes.
So
I think people are becoming, like, last night I was on a podcast, the Reptiles With podcast, and I was just talking to the guys there, and they were actually saying, like, we need some sort of more professional structure here. And so people are actually, it's like on the tip of everybody's tongue, right? Because people realize, and this kind of takes us into the FWC stuff, is everything is so up in the air. Like I said, there's no way for us to act professional when, like Florida's a great example because there are things all over the place that are out, wild, right, invasive species. And if you had papers, you could prove, no, that's not my animal. This is like, this is my binder full of the papers that I have. And I feel like that would go a long way to just giving us credibility.
Right. And I mean, then also, them, if they don't want to just take your word for it, then you call the registry, and then the registry, you pay into the registry that we have to back you. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're there for. Oh, yeah. So and how many animals did you say? Well, I've got 50 listed here. How many did he have? 50. Okay. Well, then, that's what it is. Now, that's not to say that even in the dog world, and if we did have a reptile registry, that you can't kind of finagle and be sneaky. Of course you can, but those are particular groups of people that do those things. Of course, I've bought in dogs with paperwork that didn't belong to them, not knowing. I bought in dogs that didn't have paperwork, or, people will lie about the age, or, things like that. Of course, everything's got its negatives, but you're wanting the positives to outweigh. It should be 80-20, 20 negative, 80 positive. That's what you're looking for. If you can get that, then you'll be successful. But I will say this, the main problem in the reptile community, and I think why it can't go to the next level, is they have a huge issue with denial and accountability. A huge issue. And even when things are in their face, it's kind of like, yeah, we know there's a problem in Florida, but anyway, FWC, they did this and they did that. Well, okay, yeah, but you've got almost 200 animals running around down there that shouldn't be there. And
200 species.
they act like, the 200 species, they act like that's really not, how often do they even talk about that? I don't hear it anymore. And I never heard it in general, really, unless they have to. Mm-hmm. Then they'll acknowledge it. But other than that, it's not happening because there's so many things. When you can go and pick chameleons off the trees, and you can go and catch Burmese without even trying, then why are we still letting people breed Burmese? Why are we still letting people breed chameleons? Go down to Florida and pick them up. Pay Florida to go in for a couple hours and catch reptiles.
Yeah,
that's what I think should happen. Rather than, people are down there slaughtering them. And I get it. They're invasive species. They are a problem. But the problem where it comes in with the denial, those animals didn't import themselves over here.
Yeah.
And they didn't ask to be imported over here. We did that. And we act like we didn't do that. So it's the hurricane's fault. You know what I mean? Yeah. Before anyone even says, well, yeah, there are some people that let stuff go. It's the hurricane. It was the tornado. And then maybe somebody let some stuff go. That's literally what you hear.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's why I said, dude, I got to get away from these people. Like,
well,
like this is,
it's true. Like there is a lack of accountability, and the Florida thing is a perfect example. The hurricane thing does get brought up a lot, Hurricane Andrew, whatever it was, and I think there's already lots of actual scientific data to show that there was invasive species before that.
Right.
And the main thing with the hurricane was it was a berm breeding facility, right? That kind of
Yeah,
got
this
opened
one,
up.
but right when it first, the first big incident.
But that doesn't count the chameleons and the monitors
Right.
and the tegus. Like
Well,
there's a whole bunch of stuff.
I mean, look. Okay, people are going to get mad about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Florida should not have any animals down there as far as in breeding facilities, knowing how the weather is there.
Mm.
That is, to me, that's stupidity. I'm sorry. It is. You know that hurricanes and tornadoes or whatever, they come there annually all the time, and that stuff can happen. So I'm not saying you can't keep pets in Florida. I'm saying breeding facilities, that's the last state that we need any breeding facilities under those weather conditions.
Mm-hmm.
It just does not make sense. But rather than them try to curb the problem, like I said, it's just a mention of it and then they move on. And I don't, I mean, how do you solve that problem now? So you're just going to keep killing those animals? To me, and this is just my opinion. I mean, it's murder, man. I mean, it's like I said, we brought those animals here, and our solution as humans, because we love to play God, is just kill them. Pay people to kill them. Why don't you just pay people to catch them and resell them? You know what I mean? Or I don't know. Can you relocate? I mean, there's so many options. There's a lot of options to think about, and I'm not sitting here saying that all those options will work, but there are a lot of options that you can think about and play on.
Yeah.
Rather than just be in denial about it and continue to import animals. I remember I showed you some stuff from like 95, 96 of how many animals were imported just here in the year of 1996. It was almost 2 million reptiles.
That's insane.
Just in 1 year. And I'm just like, man, I guess, if these people really had breeding programs, you wouldn't keep needing to bring all these animals over here. And I was like, but the excuse is, conservation in your home. Okay, but what about saving the rainforest? What happened to that?
Yeah. What about the 2 million animals that are no longer in the wild because we keep using the bumper sticker conservation?
Right. And how are you conserving things with your designer animals?
Mm-hmm.
Conserving your bank account. I'm pretty sure I said that on the last one. I'll say that. I say it all the time.
Yeah.
You're conserving your ego, your money, and your channel, your YouTube channel, whatever it is, the fame that you've got. And within the groups, there's so much hostility between each other, especially like if you get into like the Facebook groups. It's like that's why it's hard to have a structure because everybody wants to be on top.
Yes.
And everybody can't be on top. Everybody can't be number one's, first of all, number one's not even the first number. 0 is the first number. So you want to be a 0 before you get to 1. And then you go 2, 3, 4. So there's stuff that comes after that, but everybody wants to be the top breeder. They want to have these God level titles with literally the word God in them sometimes. When I see that, and that's in the dog world too.
Yeah.
When I see that,
it's a human thing.
Yeah, I just had a debate with a guy who called himself, he had God in his thing, and this guy's like the information that he was spitting out was just about the press of Canary. It was just total BS. But his goal was, I got like 100,000 followers on TikTok again. My goal is, he was literally trying to discredit the entire Presa Canario community from here to the guys in the Canary Islands by calling their dogs fake. So he's the only person that has the real dogs. Nobody else. That's really literally what he was saying. Yeah. And, they called me in, they're like, it's like they sick me on people sometimes. And, we went at it. And then, I ended up, finding his dog's pedigree, and his dogs are no more or no less Presa than anybody else's. You know what I mean? But his image was the dog father. And I've got this and I'm doing this and my dogs are superior. But there is a level of competition in the dog world because we do have competition. There is no competition in the snake world. Right. It's more beef than competition, and then that beef kind of gets very hostile to the point where they'll try to discredit your animals and your caretaking techniques. And then if they can't do that, then it gets personal. Now they want to start, figuring out your name and your address and talking stuff about your family or your friend. Like it's crazy. Like it's extremely childish, and we're still, dealing. If you remember that whole Peter Cow thing,
Yes. Yeah.
Peter Cow. It's still an issue. Some of the women that I talk to are still like, why can't we just be keepers? Why do we have to be women keepers? And then, now we said something about the black reptile groups. There's no white reptile groups still yet. But so you see the division.
Yes.
I've never in the canine world or the horse world or the feline world or the bird world, I've never met someone to say I'm a black dog breeder, or I'm a white dog breeder, or I'm a female. Well, the women in the dog community, they gave themselves the name dog women. So they did that.
Yeah.
So, that's on them to do. But, there's so much division, within the community. So when you start thinking about structure, it's like, man, how? I talked to a guy who works at the reptile exhibit in the Cincinnati Zoo, maybe about 3 months ago. And he was talking about stud books. And actually somebody sent a post that he did to me, and I wrote him, and he got back to me like about a month later. And we had a short conversation, and he said, man, you'll be hard pressed to find anybody that really cares enough to do it. He said, I can't even get these guys to do the names in the books, and they get paid to do it.
Right.
So, there's someone else in the reptile community. So like you said, people are acknowledging this, and they know that we need this stuff, especially when you start putting more money, into this, and more time and more effort. Animals in general are a lot of work. And the more you have, the more work that you're going to do. So like I said, I don't understand why they haven't been fighting for insurance if you see that your organization isn't going to do it. I did it. I went to bat, and then they told me this is what I needed to do, and I went out and did it, and we couldn't do it for lack of support in the community. And unfortunately, this happened to the person who used to run USARK before Phil ran USARK. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do the same thing. He wanted insurance. He wanted a registration. And guess who shot him down? The community. So even back then in the early 90s, they were like shaking their heads at it. So it's just one big free for all out here. So It just seems like, the goal is just to keep the animals flowing.
Yeah.
That's it. Just keep them coming in. As long as we keep them coming in, we can keep them happy, and they'll keep donating to us as we need to. And, as we ask for it, and we don't provide any services on down the road, though.
Right. Well, and you think, like, I just, thinking about the Florida situation, for example, imagine how powerful it would be if, and like you said, it's easier to talk about a solution than actually execute a solution. But imagine if the community was very serious about solving that in some way, the invasive species issue, and the government would see, look at this community. They're actually coming in. They're cleaning up this mess. Maybe it's not all of their fault, but at the same time, like, we keep reptiles, and there's wild reptiles out there. It would really give us way more credibility if we were organized in that way, where we were willing to clean up a mess, even if you wanted to say that wasn't our fault, which would be, I think, a hard place to argue from.
Right. You at this point.
Yeah. Do you think that because the reptile keeping community is almost built on a foundation of crime originally, right? Like when you talk about the imports and all this, there is.
Well, that's how it started.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that started illegally?
Yeah.
It started illegally. And anyone who doesn't know that or recognize that, then either you haven't been in here long enough, or, like I said, you're in denial, or you just don't know. But that's how it started. No, there was no one was following any type of regulations, because one, there weren't as many regulations when guys like Tom Crutchfield and the guy who used to run USARK and others were starting to go over and there's a whole thing. You can't say I'm making it up. Tom Crutchfield's episodes on Locked Up Abroad for this.
Exactly.
You can go and watch it. So, because I have a lot of people to try to dispute, stuff that I say, because they don't like to hear fact and they don't like to hear the truth. They just want to hear what makes them comfortable. And I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you uncomfortable. It's like working out. You got to balance yourself, you go in looking skinny and you come out looking buff. Like, that's how it's supposed to be. But yeah, that's how it started. And I think there is a level of that that's still, because a lot of these people, you have people who openly keep things illegally. You know what I mean? Openly, you see them online doing that and things like that. And they also say they're USARK members. That's not a good look when, you get caught or something like that, because that's the first thing they're going to look at that page, like, oh, look, and they got the bronze platinum package. So USARK is now also saying that it's okay to do whatever it is you want, regardless of the laws that we set in. So they're not policing anything.
Yeah.
It's just here. We'll tell you what the ban bills are. We'll ask you for money. Don't you dare email us because, I don't know if you remember when they first put their Instagram page up, it said no DMs. And I kept tagging them like, so donations, yes, donations, no to DMs. And I kept tagging them and they took it down. So it doesn't say that anymore.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, how dare you, anybody, and this is just in general, how dare anybody ask somebody for money for a cause and then you don't want to talk to them? But if I were your buddies, these big names, as that's what everyone wants to call them, you definitely pick up the phone for me and hear what I have to say. So you're telling me my money is good enough, but maybe my ideas aren't. So the little guy isn't as important as the so-called big guy. But I've never seen one of those other guys able to do anything that I'm not able to do. We're still breathing the same air. We're doing this. Our foundations are the same. You may have more money than this person or less money than this person. You may be able to do stuff a little bit more extravagant, but you're still eating, sleeping, reproducing, and living on the same planet. So if you ask me to help you, then I should be able to talk to you.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And I think that's the, I guess this would be like the very controversial part of this episode, because there are a lot of people that are very proud to support USARK. And I think to steelman their position, they are going out to the court cases and attempting to overturn laws and whatnot. But I would say one of the biggest criticisms I've heard from other people, as well as yourself, not just you though, is there's a lack of positions on their part as far as like animal welfare. How should an animal be kept? You can't find that on the USARK.
Right.
I've had people reach out to them, same thing, ask them for a position on this. Like how should you keep an animal ethically? And it's crickets. Now maybe that's changed. I mean, this is a while, but I don't think so. I don't think anything on their website shows enough
it's
about
an
the
online
welfare
newspaper. It's that's all it is. They did have something up there about some disease, something. It might still be up, but it's one thing to put something up and it's another thing to promote it. You know what I mean? Anybody can put a post up and then you go on to the next thing. But wellness is something, as long as the animals are alive, that needs to be promoted. Exactly. I don't think that I've seen anything. And like I said, if someone knows, correct me. I haven't seen anything about NIDO on there, NIDO testing. Like I said, we're sitting here talking about insurance and things like that. So if you don't see them pushing for that, and then when come on, they did a podcast and their administrative assistant couldn't answer half the questions that she was asked. And then two of the most important questions about insurance in the registry, she kind of laughed at her and was just like, on down the road. What, on down the road after they're banned? Like, then, on down what do you mean? 30 years, going into 40 years, on down the road. Like, and she was asked directly about an AKC type thing and insurance. I know because I wrote the questions that he asked her. You know what I mean? So, because I didn't think that I was going to be able to make it to the live to, be in the text and whatnot. And then it kind of went somewhere else. Some other guy came in and called her out of her name and then said that I sent him to do that. And that is absolutely BS. I didn't send anyone. I said, if you guys keep asking me about USARK, here's your chance to ask USARK about USARK.
Yes.
I can't control what someone says or does, but yeah. And that guy watches your channel, so he'll see me. And I'm like, don't use my name like that. I don't appreciate. But
and that's the thing is that you're actually not trying to attack the people that run USARK.
No, dude.
I think there's always an issue when we defend reptile keeping for the sake of reptile keeping. It actually doesn't make us a very strong position because it blinds us to all the negative things that come along with the community. So if we were to say we want to defend the right for keeping reptiles because we think it's a great privilege and there's some benefits to it, we also want to highlight the negative things, like to say like we don't condone that. This is how we should keep. And I think to just say it's our right, we got to do it, we got to defend it without coming along with the welfare concern of the animal doesn't make us look strong. It's
got to be a compromise. You can't just have 100% of everything, and that's the problem. and the community wants it. And so I think that is what USARK is trying to give them and from what I see. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I see. You've got to have self-regulation, and you're going to have to compromise with these people. One, because this is what they don't really understand. If they really want to shut this down, well, they'll shut it down. And there ain't nothing that anybody can say or do about it when they really want to shut it down. And this same administrator even admitted when they asked, like, do you think there's going to come a time where all animals will be illegal? And this is something that me and you talk about all the time. And she even admitted, like, I do think that that's in the works. And I'm here to tell you, people, it is in the works.
Yes.
It's already happening. The same stuff that we're dealing with over here, they're dealing with in other countries, the same type of bills and things like that. So that's why this stuff should have been international. We should be, but I just get so many excuses when I try to reach out. I'm like, dude, why aren't you guys like, so you can import from the EU and sell to the EU, but you can't connect. Well, their legislation is different. Legislation is different everywhere. Mm-hmm. Importing rules are different everywhere, but you still make sure those animals come over here. Stop making excuses. You know, that's all it is denial, excuses, and unaccountability for the lack of things that they know already need to be in place. And that's why you deal with things like what happened with the FWC, where, you know, they just rolled up, you know, however it happened. You know, I'm still not really clear about that situation. It is unfortunate that those animals did have to be put down, but, you know, their position is, oh, we just want, like you said, we just want to defend the right for you to have these animals, rather than working with legislation and saying, okay, well, look, if we can do this, this, and this, then we'll give you this and this. And I've seen articles where legislatures have talked to USARK, to Phil, and said, you know, it would have just been so much easier if you had worked with us and against us. Like, this is not how we wanted it to go down. Mm-hmm. But then the bill got passed. You know, right. I'm like, people, listen, I'm not making this up. You don't believe me? I can send you this stuff that I'm talking about. You know, I reached out to Phil via Jeremy Brassman, and I wrote a long paragraph, basically everything that we've talked about. No reply, not even an FU, nothing, nothing at all. You know, like I said, you don't know me well enough to have a personal problem with me to try to bash me personally. I'm talking strictly about how this organization is run. I don't know Phil. I ain't going to sit here and say that I like Phil based off what's happening. I don't like how things are happening, and everyone wants to put things on him. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, Phil does that. That's what she was saying in the pod. Well, that's Phil. That's Phil. That's Phil. That's Phil. That's Phil. That's why he's the only one who gets paid, I guess.
Right.
So everything is Phil, but no one can talk to Phil unless you're like Brian or Kevin or Samson, you know, because you know that guy too. So,
right.
Like I said, I just don't understand it. So
what do you think the simplest thing USARK could do to start moving us in the right direction? Like, because I mean, I feel like, because that's the other argument in support of USARK, is it is just one guy. It's just Phil. He's got a ton on his plate. But I feel like, you know, you look at I think the revenue from last year through donations was $1 million.
Yeah. It's not a lot.
Yeah, but I feel like they could have another staff member or something but maybe they use all that in legal fees. I don't exactly know, but like, do you have a sense of what they could implement kind of immediately to start pushing us towards not to get us away from the image of just defending to defend?
Well, man, I'm going to say there's two things that can happen. You're going to have to stop walking down the same path trying to get to a different place, because you're never going to get to a different place unless you're doing that on purpose. Then that has something bigger behind it. Or just quit and let someone else come in and take over a whole new organization. There's more than one dog registry. You know what I mean? So even the idea that I came up with, so I didn't have to be the only registry. And I said on your podcast, I'm not trying to be the only registry. I'm just trying to show people, like, you know, this, if you do this, it will help you. But, you know, now you have issues of where, like, this whole animal abuse thing, and this isn't, you know, the first time that's happened, and it won't be the last time, where she even said on that podcast, and I was told by two, I don't know who they are, what their position is. I guess they're just joining USARK, and they told me the same thing she said on camera twice, that She said it on MJ's show. She said it on their show. And then these two people told me in a text message, and they said that they're not really going to get involved with that animal abuse thing because it's not a good look for USARK. That's what they said. And I said to myself, I said, well, what's not a good look for USARK is not getting involved and not stepping up and saying, hey, we don't condone this. I'm not going to tolerate it. And I'm going to help, the law enforcement, FWC, whoever it is, deal with this matter, because this is a person from the reptile community and everyone's seen those pictures. And that's if that person who took those pictures hadn't have probably gotten pissed off about whatever reason between her and that man, then we would have never saw those things.
Yes.
Because that's not the only facility that's happening right now while we're filming this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that complain about sellers selling dead animals or sick animals on purpose, and they know it, and they even make memes about it. So you're making memes about the problems. So you're joking about the problem, but the guy is still out there making his money.
Yes. Well, that's a weird thing about the reptile community. And I think like the sentiment that you're saying that the folks from USARK have is we'd rather just not talk about these things, and because they're afraid, it's like they don't want to shine light on those things because it, like you said, it makes them look like, well, that's one of us, so look how bad we all are. But no, it's actually does the opposite. We can say that is horrible. Like what happened there was outrageous and horrible. And like you said, it was exposed how many of those situations are happening right now who people aren't even on social media, right? Like there's going to be these breeding factories somewhere where nobody has a camera in there and we would never know. That's why that it would be so important for USARK to at least have something written down to say, look how much this goes against our, policy, this, whatever policy.
That's what I would have done.
But like, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, I would have done that. I'd have spoke out immediately, because then all those hate groups are going to come in and they're going to see that. And then they're going to extrapolate on that. You know what I mean? And they're going to turn that into a tsunami. You know what I mean? And you can't, this is something I say to people all the time. You can't tell a lie without the truth. So they're going to use the truth and they're going to turn it into a grand lie. And then they're going to go to legislation and say, look at this. And then USARK, they're silent. The only thing they did was say he can't go sell animals at the reptile shows.
Right.
Big deal.
Okay? Yeah. That's not a huge punishment.
Man, it's like I said, it's very unfortunate that you have to see that and go through that. But what's also unfortunate is that I know that that's happening in some of these other facilities, and I've seen videos from other facilities, but they won't give me those videos. Like, oh, no, not without a lawyer. I don't want so-and-so to do this, or I'm scared. I'm like, well, dude, then you're just as bad. You're worse than they are, because you were taking money from that man or that woman, and you knew that was going on, and then you recorded it, and now you're showing people, and then you don't want anything to be done about it. So shame on you, just like shame on him or her, whoever it is. And that's what you deal with. Yeah, man, that's all I can continue to say. It's just how unfortunate it is. And I feel bad for the animal. And I've had to tell people, like, I'm not here for the people. I'm not here for the keeper. I'm here for the animals.
Yes.
That's what I'm here for, because now it's all about the keeper. The animals are props at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The animals are props. Everybody's got to have a king cobra now. If you keep venomous, you got to have a king cobra, or you're not one of the cool kids. You're not really doing the venomous game. Or if you don't have this snake or this, if you don't get that, you're not this. But people have been sucked into this organization, dude. It's like a cult. And many people have even expressed that exact word to me about it. Like, dude, some of these people, you can't tell them anything. It's like they're in a trance, they're in a cult. No matter what you show them, what you tell them, they don't want to hear it. I had a guy, and then the threatening comes. I've been threatened. I've had other people tell me they've been threatened. And that's something that has been going on for a few years. It's from anywhere from, I'll make it, you know who I am, I'll make it so you can't get any more animals, to the threatening of hurting people's families. Dude,
for speaking out against USARK, for example.
Well, yeah. USARK, or speaking out against, just not even necessarily USARK, but yes, USARK are speaking out against negative things in the community.
Right. People want to hide it. That's the tendency.
So it doesn't even have to be involved with USARK. It could just be somebody sees something that they know is not right, and they say something, and now this guy's threatening your family. Dude, you're a coward, and you're not going to do nothing to nobody's family.
Yeah.
I've yet to have that threat because I think people know from a couple of the lives that I've done, and I'm I'm gonna show up to your house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's not do that. But why are you talking to people like that?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Why does that exist? I've never threatened anybody in the animal world. And if you say something crazy like that to me, then okay, then game on. But I've never, I've had guys like I said, oh, you're not a USARK member, I don't want to sell you animals. And a few other people have told me that that's been happening to them. If you don't go get a USARK membership, they don't want to sell. So now you're going to force, dude, that's a cult.
Yes.
That's a cult. You're forcing me to spend money with something that I may not agree with. Yeah, I may support the mission, but I don't see the mission. It's how some people are looking at it. Some people are still like, dude, I don't really believe their itemized list. It's very short. It's very vague. And so when you have 5 million people keeping at least one reptile, but then your membership numbers are like 20, 30,000, that's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty sad because AKC registered like 10 million French bulldogs last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're doing numbers. We're talking money here. They need money. So why wouldn't you take a look at what they're doing? I mean, I already had it set up for you. They could have bought it from me and kicked me out. Aside from whether you like me or not, if you really care about the animals, your feelings about me or my feelings about you shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And I even said that on your like, dude, I'm willing to work. I was. Now, I'm washing my hands of it. I'm still going to keep reptiles because I love animals, but I'm just not going to have that same position that I had within the community anymore. Because I don't see a lot of community effort. But I do see some people, like you said, that are trying to step up and do the right thing. But there's just a lack of progression on the part, even with some of the you don't see a ton of products, you don't see a ton of people writing manuscripts anymore. And I'm not saying it's so hard to say anything. I did a live and everything I said was challenged. You know what I mean? I said just basically what I said. You don't see a lot of people writing books, and then in the comments, like, well, so-and-so write a book, no, write a book, and no. I said I didn't say everybody.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I mean, I got challenged on facts, on hardcore facts that were facts. You can't ask me a question and then I tell you my experience and then you don't want to hear it. Well, it gets such and such in temperature over here. And I know that. Well, I didn't say that it didn't, but if I didn't go over there, how can I tell you something I didn't document?
Right. Well, and that's the thing with you is you actually have experience traveling to these places.
Yeah. I mean, I did a whole, who do you know in the reptile community that did a presentation away from the reptiles on Indonesia, which is one of the most sought after animals in the world? Most people do not know. Most people in the reptile community have no clue about that. And I know you saw that video.
Yeah, it was great.
No clue about what's going on over there.
Yeah, and for those listening that haven't seen it, it was you get into a lot of the history, the political issues, the just the tension in that part of the world, and it was really fascinating.
Some of it's still going on to this day. Some of those pictures I took myself, and then some of those pictures I did get offline. Mm-hmm. But I mean, how do you not know that? I just don't understand. You know everything about the green tree pythons, everything about the scrub pythons, but you don't know that somebody may have died or got hurt or to collect these animals, and then they pay them chump change.
Yes.
Over there to go and collect for you. I know that. I've seen it. You hand them a few bucks, man, and that's it. And then the animals get repriced so many times before they get off to their forever home, if you want to call them that, which sometimes isn't a forever home, and, we talked about that. Dan has been on your show talking about that. That's the exact same thing. Because, he lives there now. I mean, in Southeast Asia, he's not in Indonesia, but and so he's taking you now through the process. And, Dan's good like me. He's going to be himself, man. He's not really. And, Dan is so funny, and he always slides in those jokes on his podcast where it's just like, the mother guys, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. You know what I mean? And they don't like that. But, there's just so many areas that people they just don't, there's just no concern about at all.
Mhm.
And like I said, the history or what's going on in PNG. I mean, they're trying to develop over there on the PNG side. So that means a lot of species of animals or localities are going to cease to exist that most of us have never seen. Because of that. I don't see anybody trying to make an effort to contact the guy. I know he's from like France or somewhere like that, who's doing some of the developmental sites over there. Like no one's tried to contact him or other legislation over there. Like, hey, look, I mean, if you're going to kill these animals off, I don't know how far you guys are planning to develop, but why not let us come over and pay you and grab some of them? I mean, that's conservation.
Yeah.
I don't know very many people. Actually, I don't know anybody who's put anything back. Honestly, I don't. Not that I can think. I'm pretty sure there have been some people that have done it, but I don't know them names off the top of my head.
Do you mean putting animals back?
Animals back? Yeah, animals that were bred here and then put back. For whatever reason. I know that it happens. I'm just saying I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone that's done that personally. But yeah, it's a very personal community. And when it gets personal, it's not really communal anymore. So, like I said, I mean, we now we have issues of animal abuse on top of issues of lacking services that are needed. It's like, are they going to survive?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to pull through in the next 10 years? Because, the government wants to ban all private ownership of pets.
Yeah. And that's a real actual threat.
Yeah, that's a real threat. Even though a lot of the people in the reptile community, again, this denial that they have is, oh, they'll never do that. I'm like, you don't know how legislation works. They just need to get that on the books. It doesn't have to pass the first time. As long as it gets on there, then they can bring it up whenever they want. And like with the Competes Act, they didn't even say anything. But,
right.
USARK has this machine that scans for words. It does the legwork for them, scans for the words all over the internet. It comes up like ban bill, reptile, or whatever. And then that's how he found it. It wasn't, some people were really thinking that Phil went through like 3,000 pages and no, a program did that for him. And I'm not knocking him because I'm just letting people know, like, that's how he found that. And that's a great tool.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be enough when they're like, yeah, we're shutting it down, and they're testing the waters by telling you, well, we're going to make it illegal to sell anything in the other state. You're not even going to be able to take your animal to a vet in another state. It will make you a felon. As soon as you get caught, you will be a felon, and don't dare go overseas with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But it is something that they want to do. I mean, you've got a lot of states on board for it. A lot of small counties that want to ban, like, even, up to fish and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these things have been circulating. I think anyone listening is probably familiar with, that threat is for sure. And that's always so frustrating is like you said, there's abuse issues. We still have major importation issues as far as like unnecessary importation. We have the invasive issues, and we don't say, hey, we got to pump the brakes on some of this stuff as a community, because there's amazing people in this community that are absolutely obsessed with these animals that could thwart a lot of their energy into conservation or preservation or just having a better understanding of the ecosystems these animals come from. But we kind of miss those opportunities. And then even worse, we hide the negative side instead of saying, bringing it up to the surface, saying this was not good. Do you think that the Slither example, does the reptile community have more of those than other animal keeping communities, or do you think that sort of thing is just an animal keeping thing?
I think it's equal all the way around with the animals. I think it's harder to see in the reptile community. If you start abusing dogs and horses and things like that, I mean, that's
notice.
Easy to see, right? They notice that, and a lot of most people. I'm going to say most people, but a good portion of people on the planet don't care about reptiles. Unfortunately.
Yes, yeah.
It's just like whether you like the animal or not, like, don't trash it. Like, I think I sent you that video of the guy trying to stab the alligator or the baby crocodile in the head for whatever reason, and probably wasn't on camera, but he probably killed that animal. I'm willing to bet that animal died. You know what I mean? Even though it bit him, I'm pretty sure that pissed him off even more. I don't know what he was trying to stab it for.
Yeah.
But, and people laugh at that, and, they make videos about it, and I've seen it. I've seen guys that keep dogs, catch snakes on their homestead, like with their chicken, trying to steal eggs, and they'll kill it. And I had a video of a guy swinging the snake around, he's swinging it around until it just snapped apart. And then he posted it, and people
don't care.
They
don't see that as abuse.
No, they don't care at all. So, dealing with, like I said, no, I think the abuse is all the way around. I just think it's just, you just don't see it as much. It's harder to see because the reptiles are always indoors. You know what I mean? They're indoors, they're in your houses, they're in your rooms, they're in your basement where your dogs and your horses, people can drive by and be like, oh my God, look at how skinny that horse is. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I'm calling someone. You're
Oh,
not going
yeah.
to get that. So it has to be, most of the people that do get exposed are by the workers, and the workers see it, and then they don't say anything until you piss them off. Like, I ain't paying you today, or I'm not, for whatever reason, like, oh, really? Got these videos here. You know what I mean? That's how it happens.
Yeah.
So then you even have to ask, in those situations, do they even really care? Because you only exposed it because you got mad at so-and-so.
Yes.
I mean, because look at that video with Samson. I mean, them animals just didn't die when we all saw that stuff. I mean, one of those animals looked like a fossil that you would see at the National History Museum, like one of those gecko skeletons. Yeah. So that takes a while to happen, to decay. Yeah. That stuff was, I mean, that was terrible. And I mean, look how many followers they have. And, they said like, oh yeah, well, the law enforcement did come and then they did, but I'm like hearing people, and then this is the thing. And then you have so many random people making videos about it, and each one of them are saying something slightly different. Like, oh, well, the FWC came and they didn't do a thorough inspection, so he got off the hook. Or then this guy says this. So it's like, well, how can I get the real information on what really happened? I don't know what really happened.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like with the whole FWC thing. I remember we were scouring like, well, who said this? Well, I'm going to see if I can find this video. And then this channel was saying this, but then everybody's got a video about it. Well, You should already have videos about, I'm not saying like focusing on animal abuse, but just acknowledging it. Like, hey, at the end of their videos, like, hey man, be kind to animals, such and such and such. And, we know you're out there. And when we catch you, like, it may sound like a dictatorship or something like that, but obviously it's happening. So someone needs to be, sometimes, when you call people out, even though you're not with them, it kind of gives them a feeling like where they're like, man, maybe I should stop doing this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we know what you're doing, and I know some names I ain't going to say, but no, he might even trick you by saying the state. Like, I know you're up there in Minnesota, such and such and such. And you're like, oh my God, how did he know that? But nobody does anything until somebody exposes them. And then, I told a couple people, I said, it's great to focus on the Samson issue. I said, but while you're focusing on Samson, there are other animals that need your help. So stop focusing just on Samson. And we've already seen it. It's already happened. We can't do anything about it. So let's make aware that we're not going to tolerate this, period, rather than just bash this one guy while there's 20 other people doing it. Some of these same people that you call the kings and the legends and all this other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say this is how we expect the things that, animals to be cared for. And it's not about that one case. It's just about, in general, the type of behaviors that we accept within our community, and that's perfectly fine. Right. That's what a community is. We all have, that's virtually almost the definition of a community, outlining behaviors that are acceptable and behaviors that aren't acceptable. And yeah, it's great to attack this one person, but really, why don't we have a very clear understanding of what we should see from snake breeders? And clearly, that just we aren't there yet. And that was one thing that you had wanted to talk about, just the difference between, as you called them, real breeders and keepers versus commercial setups or commercial organizations. So maybe you can just go off on that.
For sure, man. I mean, okay, here's an exact situation. Morph Market was giving away $5,000. I don't know if you saw that on their website. They were giving away $5,000, and I was like, why not just give that why not just give that money to USARK? And give it away as a prize money for people to buy more animals with. Mm-hmm. And someone ragged on me about saying that. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But they were giving away this money. And, I'm just thinking to myself, like, and I know you did a video about this, is like, why take that money and buy more animals? Why don't you take that money and upgrade your facility? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, upgrade your cages and things like that, your room. And, you're like, oh, I'm going to get my dream animal. And I'm going to put it in a tub. Woohoo! You know what I mean? Like, but to me, that's that's where the line comes in, is where, are you upgrading what you're doing? Are you progressing, or are you just trying to have this name or this image that you've got all this rare stuff, or you've got all these, and I've got the most carpet pythons, or I've got this, or I've got that? Because a real breeder of any animal is probably only going to have a few good animals that they're working with, and that's what they're developing their program around. And then as they need to, they bring in animals to outcross and things like that. That's how a breeding program is run.
Yes.
And you don't see that a lot of times. I mean, I've heard people talk about, you can make a line in the reptile community, you can line breed with two animals, and they have a title of being the legend. I'm like, you can't line breed with two animals. That's not possible. So, but people are listening to that. And so now people think that they can do that, and they will do that.
Well, and actually, I just recorded an episode earlier today, which will be out the episode before this one, and it was with a lady named Rebecca Hassler, who's in Germany, and she works with her company is called Dragoon Geckos, and she line breeds leopard geckos, and she runs it like a thoroughbred horse stable. And one thing that I think was so important for her to say, she said she probably holds back about 1% to 2% of the litters to go back into her program. And she has extremely strict, she actually wrote herself out a standard, which includes physical standard as well as behavior. She's very keen on making sure the behavior is not aggressive and, friendly to people and whatnot. Right. And that was, how many people?
That's a real keeper.
That's a real keeper. Yeah, exactly.
That's a real keeper. That's a real breeder.
That takes dedication, and the fact that 99% of your litter has to just be sold as pets. You don't get to just put them back into mom and make more red leopard geckos.
Right. No, that's real breeding, of any animal, because that's how I run my stuff here. I don't even let pups go here before they're 3.5, 4 months old, because I need the best dogs to stay here. And it doesn't mean you're getting a trash dog. What it means is you're getting second best to that. But how can I improve my lines if I don't keep the best animals and then line breed them?
And you need to give them time to see, what type of dog they are.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's like with the green tree python guys. As soon as they have a clutch, they sell them all. And I'm like, well, dude, these animals change color. When I bred green tree pythons, I never sold anything before it went through its color change, because how do I know what I have?
Exactly. Yeah.
If I sell you that perfect animal, you're not going to give it back to me. You know what I mean? And not unless you kind of try to charge me double what I charged you. Yeah. And I've seen people try to go back and get animals, so you have to have a real program. And what you just described, that's a real breeding program. And, where she's even creating a standard based off the nature standard for the animals. So now she's putting her spin on it. Commercial breeding is, I've got 1,000 animals in tubs, in aquariums or enclosures that are not really big enough for them. All they really do is breed, and I show them off online, and that's it. And I'm constantly pumping out animals, and I'm probably only selling 30% of these animals. I've seen animals sit on Morph Market for 2-3 years. From some of these large breeding facilities that have thousands of animals. Like, that's commercial. That's a reptile mill. You're not a real breeder. I'm telling you that you're not a real breeder. Anybody can produce, but not everybody can reproduce. And most people in the reptile community are not reproducing. There's a lot of scatterbred stuff. I want to breed it to this and breed it to that and breed it to this and breed it this. And then I'm going to take that baby and breed it over here. Or what they are doing is this brother and sister inbreeding.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a common thing in the reptile community. I was trying to get a pair of red spitting cobras, because I really like that species of cobras. But the guy that I contacted, I said, they got to be unrelated. You know what I mean? I said, and I'm not dumb. If they're not unrelated, I don't want them. But I shouldn't have to ask that. Yeah. I mean, I understand if people want to do that, then I should at least have the option. Be like, because anytime, if you've seen any ads that I post up, I always have like unrelated to let people know, like, these animals are unrelated. One, if I'm inbreeding anything, it's going to be very distant, unless I'm like, these are the last 2 animals ever. Yeah. I don't have a choice. Yeah, that's something different. But they make a lot of excuses for it, about how many times you can do it and how the genes work. As far as I know, very few of these guys have a degree in genetics at all. And it's just funny, because I rarely tell people that I have a degree in animal biology and genetics, because they like to trash me and say that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I've never had a complaint about one dog, one snake, one bird that anything. that I've bred and sold. Like everyone has always been more than happy. And I've helped multiple people breed dogs, reptiles. I've done genetic charts for a lot of people. So, I just keep that stuff kind of quiet, but now I'm saying it on record because I mean, hell, if we're gonna do the number one thing, I can sit down here and run down a whole list of number ones before a lot of these guys. You've talked to me, Dylan, for over a year, and I'm pretty sure if I was like, Dylan, how many times could you say where I'm like, oh, I did this or I did that before this guy, and it's not going to be very many times because I don't care about that stuff. But if you're going to be on that level, if they're going to do that, I can do it. I can do it too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I could sit here and say when I started importing, or my everyone knows I started breeding and selling reptiles at 14. I was in high school. Everybody knows that, but the people that know me, but then when you say that, people kind of get mad and like, oh, well, I did it at 9. You know what I mean? Like I was doing it at 9. Like, okay, dude, like, all right, great. But so it's just this level of beef. It's not competition. Like in the dog world, I can say like, man, your dog is trash. And they'll be like, man, your dog is trash. And I'll be like, all right, let's take them to the fly ball. Let's take them to I'm not saying I condone dog fighting, but people still do that. But they can say, let's take them to the box. Let's take them to the AKC show. Let's take them to the swimming competition, whatever it is. At least we can prove whose dog is the best, rather than me just saying your stuff is trash. Don't buy from him. I got better stuff. That's what you're dealing with in the reptile community. And then among getting animals that are not properly bred and they don't have a proper program, like you just described this lady in Germany. Like, and I've heard people talk about like, yeah, I want my animals to come out doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, if you want that, then this is how you have to do it. And you're not going to get it any other way. And
exactly.
Then, and then they don't do it that way. And then they're like, man, it didn't, such and such didn't happen. I'm like, I'm not going to keep giving you it. Why ask me for advice? Something that that I do, and then you don't do it. I'm not out here trying to say I'm better than this person or better than that person, but there are levels to everything. And, some people are higher up and some people are lower up, but everyone has the same abilities, I believe, as anyone else. So it's like anyone can do a podcast now. Doesn't mean it's going to be good. It could be good. Anyone can breed dogs. Anyone, so if no one is stopping you from being the best, you can have more than one of the best. Everyone should be in competition about how to make the animals better rather than the competition of who has the most animals.
Yeah,
who has
absolutely.
The best looking animals, or who can sell. Oh man, I sold 30 tree pythons last month. Like, yeah, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Like man, and I'm still sitting on a litter from 2 months ago. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, well, I ain't sold a pup yet. You know what I mean? I haven't even started taking deposits on these guys because I still haven't seen what I need to see. Yeah. And that's another thing is another thing you're going to get from a real breeder versus a commercial breeder. A real breeder is not going to sell you something you didn't ask for. Right. And that's very important, especially with me. But I guess it's kind of harder. No, it's not. I'm not even going to give them that excuse. It's not. It's just you can, like I said, anyone has the ability to do it. But in order to buy something from me, whether it's a dog, snake, whatever, I like to build a relationship with this person before we even talk about money, and see if I even have what they're looking for, because I might not have it.
Right.
And then I'll call you back and say, I didn't get, the animal that you wanted, but you might want to try so-and-so. And I'll give you a referral. But it's like, for instance, like with the dog world, let's say I have a litter of 7 puppies, right? And someone says they want a dog that is super aggressive, that's, going to be, you think is going to be around this weight range and a couple other personality traits. And I say, okay, well, I'm going to keep that in mind. And this is why I have to keep the animals for a period of time. So I see, like, maybe I see 3 of those animals that fit what this person's asking me for. So when you come to my house to buy, or I may not have it, and I was calling you so I don't have it. But I'll say, okay, yeah, I got a few animals here that fit what you're looking for. So when you come to my house, look at a pup, guess what happens? Yeah, I do have 7 puppies here, but the other 4 ain't got nothing to do with you. at all. You're not even going to see them. You're going to pick from the 3 animals that you asked me for.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing my best to give you what you asked for. Because if I let all those puppies run around, you're going to pick the one that's the most eye-catching to you, and most likely isn't going to be what you asked for. And then you're going to blame me.
Yeah, this is not a good guard dog.
Yeah, I bought so-and-so from Dark Silver Canary dogs, and it wasn't, this dog didn't do nothing that he said it was going to do. And, so that's why I don't do that. And some people have gotten mad about it. Most people, I know if they're really serious or not, because a lot of people drop off with me when it comes to buying animals, because I drill you. I'd rather give you something than you give me what I'm asking for it. And then, you lose the animal, whether it's snake, dog, or whatever, because maybe I want to breed back to that animal. Maybe I do want to call you and say, you still got that tree python? Just send me a couple pictures of it. I want to see if I can incorporate that into my program. So if you'd mind loaning it to me, for a breeding, and then I'll send it back to you, because they do that. I don't know if they do it as much anymore, but they used to do that in the 90s and the turn of the century, the loan programs and things like that. And people still do that with dogs all the time, in order to outcross or bring certain genes back or lock them in or make them stronger. Those are the type of things you're going to get from a real breeder. I mean, obviously in the reptile world, if you're getting paperwork, that means that it's been done by that person, because there is no registry that offers it. So those are things to look for, and then the conversation, like, are they really willing to talk to you, or are they just trying to get your money and, get you on out of the door? Or they're just giving you the basic information about the animal. Like if you've got a facility of animals and someone calls, they're going to be like, yeah, just go to the website, or you can look it up and all that. We'll send you a care sheet. Yeah. I mean, that's cool, but I'd like to talk to you about this animal that I'm paying you $5,000 for. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So a real breeder is going to give you that. He's going to give you that relationship, and he's going to give you a lifetime support. And most breeders will take the animal back if you can't sell it, or, if you just can't keep it, if you have to get rid of it for whatever reason. Most of them will take the animals back, or they'll try to find somewhere for it to go for you. Those are the type of things that you look for. Commercial breeders, man, they could care less, because probably 20% of their animals aren't making it anyway. They're dying off anyway. So it's a factory. That's what's happening. It's a living organic factory. That's what's going on. And we're pumping out so many animals, and we're not even selling them all. So you got to watch out for that. And, and things are sold off of someone's name rather than the quality of the actual animal. Nobody's health testing as a whole. I'm not saying, when I say, so people, when you hear me say that, majority of people are not health testing. So that's when I say nobody's health testing. That's what I mean. You ask most of these breeders, have they health tested? Even in the dog world, these guys don't do it. A lot of them don't do it. And the insurance covers some of that stuff. Yeah. But in the reptile world, the only people that are really health testing are like some of the green tree python guys, some of the python guys, and some of the, I guess ball python would fall into that too, but not everybody is doing it. Some people are in straight denial. I heard a guy say that the government, NIDO, was a government conspiracy. No, he really said that. Like, I'm not trying.
What would be the motivation for that?
I mean, I don't know. I guess to kill off all the ball pythons and all the green tree pythons. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not even trying to be funny when I say that. Like, he literally said that. I mean, I've heard some of the dumbest stuff ever. And I'm just like, man, well, if this is what you got to deal with, like, poor snake.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, I sometimes compare like the commercial breeding and the real breeders, as you're calling them, the people that have a lot of passion. They have passion, and they also have patience. Like, if you're going to have a project, you have patience. That's a massive part of it. But I think when I compare like factory farming, for example, like the food industry, I hope that as we progress as humans, that eventually the factory farming becomes less and less and less, and we start seeing more as like the individual farm communities, or like you have the farmers in the community. Right. I know we're headed in the exact opposite direction. Like, there's just massive like corporate government takeover.
Well, they want you to register your gardens down here and your homesteads and stuff down here now. So, then that kind of sways people to not want to do it, even more, because now they're like, well, now the government, they want to know how many strawberries I'm growing. You know what I mean? So
And it should be the opposite. It should be these localized communities producing food where you have, a cattle farmer producing the food for this specific area. And I kind of hope
Right.
reptile breeding heads to that direction where you have pockets of these really ethical, passionate breeders who are supplying to the market. And we don't need these massive warehouse style production houses that are just, feeding into the market, which also, it creates impulse purchasing and all these cascading of events. It just seems to me it would be more beneficial and ethical if we had more of these smaller breeders who are passionate, who are feeding the market with exactly the behaviors that you were just saying.
Well, your organizations kind of have to promote that. And if they're only willing to focus on one thing, and so for everyone listening, like what I'm saying is just USARK just needs to step it up. Like they need to go to Super Saiyan 2 because they're just at Super Saiyan 1 is what I'm saying. And then they need to go beyond to the Ascended Super Saiyan. And it's a joke, but that's what needs to happen. You can't remain at the same level because the governments, their legislation doesn't remain at the same level. They have all types of things that they can do more cans than cans. And then you have organizations who don't like what you're doing that are getting in money and go to them with abuse cases and like, here's $250,000. We need you to jump on this. And here we already did the notes for you.
Yeah.
I volunteered for PETA because I definitely want to. It's funny. There's just two reasons I'm saying this. But I volunteered for PETA when I was 14 in high school. I had to get community service hours. I didn't even know what PETA really was back then, and I didn't even know that it would be PETA. There were three options. There was women's health, political campaigning, and animal health and welfare. Which one do you think I'm going to pick?
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? So I just knew that I needed to get these hours to get on to the next grade. So I campaigned with them for 6 months and someone stopped talking to me who watches this channel. So when he sees that, because he asked me a million other questions, but never asked me how I ended up with PETA, but he went and bashed me to other people. I guess he didn't think that it would get back to me, but anyway. So I know you'll be listening, but and that's another thing. So now we're no longer friends and we agreed on a lot of stuff that we're talking about right now. And that's who even showed me the guy in Cincinnati with the stud book. So you see what I'm saying? People know, and I said this before, but as soon as I say something you don't like, now we can't be friends anymore. But he didn't ask me that question. He did ask me, if I am not doing reptiles, why do I care what happens? And I'm like, well, I'm an animal person. I'm not just a reptile person. But I campaigned for them. So I know that they can get money and they know how to get it and they're good at it. And the reptile community is always like F PETA. Oh, PETA's saying the same thing, but then they're actually doing it. How many bills have we put on these groups? None.
Yeah, exactly.
None. So you screaming that rah-rah ain't doing nothing.
They are powerful and they're swift, and yeah, they don't have an issue with cash flow.
They don't have an issue doing what they need to do, even stretching the truth into a lie. They don't have an issue with it. But you can't tell a lie without having the truth. So when they do, and when they have caught people on camera with animal abuse and things like that, well, and that's another thing is that the covering for each other in the community. If it's your boy, it's okay that he abused those animals, or he did. That's not what happened. Because you say so. Mm-hmm. So there's always that level of covering up for each other. But yeah, I created the way to get that money to be just as powerful as they are, and that's all I'm saying. People are like, I don't have to run the registration, so I don't care.
Yeah.
If someone else does it, but it's something that you all need, and you got to stop being in denial about it. If you want to survive the storm, it has to happen. If not, then just be prepared for total destruction and you hiding with your animals or this, that, and the other. And don't think that they don't know what you have, because you're all on social media and people are always, oh, the government, this, the government. Well, if you were so worried about the government, why are you on their platforms? Can't be that worried about them. Yeah. You can't be that worried about them. You got guys who are solely trying to get a YouTube check when they make a channel, and their channels. I have a channel, and I made a channel. Remember when I first started the channel, it was all animals all the time, but no one was really watching the reptile stuff. All my dog stuff was getting hits. So I just went to the Canis Codex. I don't really want to get monetized because then I can't show the videos that I want to show on there. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of cool where I am. If I do, I'm great. But my competition is a guy who's a friend of mine who already has over 30,000 subscribers. If I were to do a reptile channel, in my opinion, you would be the only, and I'm not even saying it in like a battle way, but you would be the channel to beat. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure there are other channels, because I know you know some of these. I don't know all the channels. So I can only speak on, again, what I know. But you're the channel that I know that has actual topics that matter. Remember, I told you I found you from a DIY video. That's how I found Animals at Home Canada. And then I started watching the rest of it. And I was like, damn, he's got some of these people on here that I like. I like this person. I like this lady. I like this guy. But then you had topics, that mattered. So, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to start paying attention to what's going on. I don't see that a lot down in the States. It's just a bunch of interviews. You went from this channel to 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 this channel talking about your animals. I mean, you could just do one really good interview. If it's that good, then, or at least try to make the next interview. And it's not always on the person or the interviewee, if that is a word, I don't fucking know. But if the person interviewing you switches it up, because most of these guys watch each other. So you're going to get on and ask the same questions over and over. Like, you could have asked me about my background. You already did that.
Yeah.
But you could have, I've been on dog channels. I've got a few interviews up, and some of the guys do ask me some of the same. Some of them I tell them, like, look, dude, let's just have a conversation. You ain't got to ask me that. They can go watch the Battlebred interview. It's 3 hours long if they really want to know, the majority of my background in canines. Like, let's get right to the chase. And so I appreciate your channel and the others that I haven't seen. I appreciate you guys too. I just don't know who you are. Yeah. But that's what you need. That's what's going to give you structure, not interviews, not the interviews, not the daily reptile updates. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, people, I'm not knocking it, but it's just too much of it. It's too much.
Like you said, it's the getting into the nitty gritty, and the topics that are going to progress us forward are so crucial. And I think that's kind of the point that you're making, is that we need to, look under the rug on some of these things and actually have the harder conversations. And that's sort of the feedback I get quite often with the podcast. It's like, oh, finally, I'm listening to a conversation of the things that I was thinking. Some, like, people are always thinking themselves, like, is this right? Should we be doing this? Is it even ethical to keep these animals? Et cetera, et cetera. And I think you're right. I think there's this tendency for reptile keepers to want to be secretive about all those things because they feel like it exposes us for doing something bad. But it would be so much more potent if we were, like, openly having these conversations. How can we improve? What are some of the ways that we can be a positive to society? And maybe one day we'll get there. But I think at this point, it's like you said, you want to see USARK step up. And, I know they have a lot on their plate. It is one person. Maybe they can add another person or another person and start structuring it out in a way where we can be a positive force.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whatever the reason is. I mean, they have these people that they say just volunteer a few hours a day. I don't know. And maybe Phil don't want to split the money that he's getting with somebody. I don't know. I have to say that because that's just one of the possibilities. That's one of the negative possibilities. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe he don't want to work with somebody. Like, look, Phil, if you're listening, I don't want any of your money. I didn't want your money. I wanted to help you make money to combat bills. So I was going to take a lot of stress off of you because USARK is not a registration, and he probably doesn't know how to run a registration, but I do. So I had a crew. I mean, there was enough money for everybody to get a nice salary, way more than what he's getting. And still have a nice chunk of change in the bank to combat to write a check that any legislator would be happy to take and go on about their way with, you know what I mean? But
and that's the sad part about politics, is it really does come down to money. Whether how well you can craft an argument, it's less relevant. That's why we start seeing these bizarre legislations come down, right? It's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. This animal could never live here. Why are they making the rule?
Right.
It's because it doesn't matter. They don't care about that. It's not about the actual,
No, he already took the money. They already took the check. And the check,
exactly.
In order to take this money, you had to read from this sheet right here. You know what I mean? So you took the $250,000 and now you got to sit up here And I know some of them know that it's got to sound dumb when they're like, they breed their female dogs 19 times a year. They're like, what?
Yeah.
What do you want me to say? You done took the money, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta say it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to say it. That's unfortunately that's how it works. So if they're writing $250,000 checks, then you got to be ready to write a $500,000 check. And the only way to write those checks is to have a service that people need, that they would be willing to buy into on top of insurance, because obviously USARK couldn't offer insurance, but they could link with companies to get you discounts on insurance.
Yeah.
And that's what I had running, but I couldn't show them the numbers. I mean, I could tell them the numbers, and that sounds great in theory, but they're like, okay, get this many signatures and I'll pass this off to corporate. I had 5 people on it, and people were just coming back like, no, I'm cool on insurance. I got smoke detectors in my house, so I'm good.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when you're not home and your house catches on fire, what good are those smoke detectors? Because the fire companies, they're not going to let you back in there to go get your reptiles, and they're not going to be trying to save reptiles. Some of them may be scared of reptiles, so they're not. That's going to be the last thing on their mind, is bringing out your collection of animals that are now burnt to a crisp. So then what? Then you're on GoFundMe. Please, my house caught on fire, and that's unfortunate that your house did catch on fire. But I'm just like, well, damn, why have you can't even rent an apartment down here. I don't know how it is up there, but you can't even rent an apartment down here without renter's insurance. And it's like $8 a month.
Yeah.
Reptile insurance through Nationwide is $12 and $13. So you don't got $12 or $13 a month. And like I said, it may be per animal. It is. I mean, I'm saying that as it is, but if people would do more talking to them and talking to other companies, and I can tell you this, is that other companies start seeing Nationwide banking off of exotic animal insurance, you better be sure that they're going to start offering too for a better price with better plans.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a math problem for the insurance companies.
Right.
It's just about how much income do they need to make sure they're covering the expenses of potentially having to pay somebody out.
It costs them nothing to run an insurance program for reptiles. All they got to do is put it in a computer, because we're paying into it. Right. You know what I mean? And they don't pay out. I mean, under normal circumstances, reptiles live a long time. So it would really be more beneficial for insurance companies to have exotic animal insurance, because under normal circumstances, your reptiles are living 20, 30, 40, 50 or more years, whereas your average dog is living like, we'll just say 9, 10 years.
Right.
But if something happens, but that applies to your homeowner's insurance and things. And that's another, like, my dogs are on my homeowner's insurance. All of my dogs have their own health insurance, and they're on my homeowner's insurance. So they die in this house in a house fire, I'm compensated for that. If I need to take them to the vet, like when my dog broke her leg, $3,200 surgery, my insurance company paid 80% of that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you not want that? Why are you fighting that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. So that, and then I just kind of start wondering just about, some of the people, like, you don't want insurance. Why would you? I don't know. And then it kind of, I don't like to really be rude to someone unless they're rude to me. But a lot of guys in the reptile and girls in the reptile community are rude. Very, 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 very rude. But like I said, we're still just focusing on things that we're putting a lot of stock in stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Rather than where it needs to be, unfortunately. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation in more detail a year later. We wouldn't be worried about animal abuse. I mean, you can't stop it all, but if people know that they will seriously be prosecuted for that, I think it's going to make them think, like, I don't want to get caught with this dead snake. You know what? Maybe I should just not stop bringing so many animals in to where I mean, the guy had like kinkajous and all kind of stuff there. It wasn't just reptiles.
Well, and it's weird because you think, like, let's say a puppy breeding mill was busted, or somebody gets into a dog breeding mill and there's all these dogs that are emaciated and unhealthy. The average person wouldn't look at that and go, oh, that's associated with the AKC, because we know that the AKC is against that. It's a professional organization
that has nothing to do with the AKC.
Exactly.
Right. So
but for when Slither happens to us, it seems like it just permeates through the entire community, and we're all associated with it now. Right. Suddenly.
It's so cowardly for them to say that too. It's so cowardly to say that we're not going to get involved because it's not going to look good. And like I said, so people who are hearing me say this, if you don't believe me, you can go and watch the 2 podcasts that she was on. One of them was MJ's Whack Talk, and then the other one was the Chondro Bar Room, which is a channel that I watch, and I do promote those guys. They're mainly about green tree pythons, but she was on MJ's show and she said that. And MJ even, he reiterated it. He was like, yeah, I guess it would look bad on us if no, it looks bad because you're not doing anything of what should be done. The AKC, the UKC, they would never just turn their back, even if they just was like, well, here, we'll just write you a check for $1 million to help you, get whatever you need legislative wise to prosecute this person. They do that.
Yeah. Yeah. But so it doesn't rub off on them. It's not like, oh, all dog keepers like that. It's just like they keep their image more pristine because it's
AKC they can only promote. USARK can only promote. They can't make you do anything. They can only hope that you do the right thing. And as animal lovers, we shouldn't have to hope that you're doing the right thing. You should be doing the right thing because, like I stated before, these are dependents. These animals are basically your children. If you neglect them, they will die. They did not ask to be over here. You wanted this animal, and that's why it's here.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of the abuse also comes is when they can't sell these animals. They don't want to give them away because they're going to lose money. So then they. Yeah. Don't get it twisted that they just kill some of this stuff flat out.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah.
Rather than, I forgot to feed it this many times, or don't get it twisted that they are directly murdering some of these animals. I mean, you don't think so? How people are okay with going into the Everglades and doing it. So that mindset is still there. Look at the FWC. You got mad at them. See, that's the thing. It was an uproar when the FWC did it. But then when Samson did it, it's, he's just going to not, you can't go to reptile shows anymore. And that's far. And we're going to say it's going to be a bad look if we get involved.
Right.
As the organization for the voice of reptiles. It's a bad look if we get involved. We're all you have, but that's as far as we're going to go, is just allow him not to make money anymore. Mm. Well, hell, he can just go sell drugs and make money then. So he should have been shut down. Animals should have been taken. Anything that was in like super bad condition, I hate to say it, should be euthanized, if it's not going to go on. And then those animals should have gone to rescues, like myself, I'm a rescue, and there's other rescues. And, even if they were starting to try to send some of that stuff back to like, hey, you guys got zoos all over the world, like take some of these animals. We're going to send you some of these animals. It's so funny how there's so many bills about reptiles, but it's when it comes to the actual health of the animals, it's like nothing there that regulates it. Like the imports that come in here, the CDC doesn't police that stuff. But for me to import a dog from one country to another country, the CDC is involved in that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's kind of weird. Hey, they just let the reptiles come in regardless. And if it's another animal, there's a health check, there's everything.
Yeah, even going state to state, it's got to have an official, vet verified health check to go state to state. Well, reptiles can carry diseases too. Amphibians can carry diseases too. But, I've imported. So I know that they're not there's nothing to check the health of those animals. Now like the NIDO testing is new. They just started doing that within the last 10 years, and it hasn't been 10 years. So, it's amazing how some animals are more highly regulated than others. But then you treat the unregulated animals like they're just the worst of the worst. But a lot of that also falls on the keepers because I don't think that we educate the way we need to. I think the main thing is so focused on now the keeper's ego and the expo, because the expo is all buy, sell, and trade.
Yeah.
There's no education there. Okay, I don't care that you went to one expo and there was one guy talking to them. No, I don't even think that we should even have reptile shit. After I thought about it, and I know people are going to be like, oh man, this guy. No, you can buy reptiles online. Mm. I think that there should be reptile shows like dog shows and that are about education, that are about showing who's the best, who's got the best this, and who's got good programs and promoting wellness rather than you just go in and buy, sell, and trade stuff. I'm not saying don't get animals. I'm not saying you can't buy. I'm just saying I think the show is it's not a show, it's an expo. I think it's just overrated at this point. You can order your animals from anywhere, sitting on your couch, on your computer, on your phone. That's how it's done. You don't even have to talk to anyone anymore. So pretty soon the expo is going to be gone anyway. It's like the banks. We're going to keep printing money when everything is going digital. So I don't need this brick and mortar. That costs me money. Yeah. And I can fire all these people, put some more money back in my pocket. And I don't have to lease this building out, or I don't have to pay my mortgage, whether I own the building or not. Or I can just sell it and move on to the next thing. And that's how I see. I mean, it's an upgrade. Have a show that's about, we're having the first annual reptile show, such and such is going to be there talking. So-and-so is going to be there promoting his new book. Such and such is going to be doing this. And then we're going to do the best of the best ball python and have and still charge people. And then that money can go to USARK or to wherever it needs to go to. But see, in the dog world, the AKCs are the ones, and the UKCs are the ones who set up the shows at the venues. We set up the shows in the reptile world. So that money goes in. If I set up a show, that money goes in my pocket so I have to pay the place, whatever venue that I use, and then the vendors pay me. And then that's the money that I make off the show. Now, whether or not I'm sure some people do give that money to you, some of that money to USARK, and some of it goes in your pocket, and that's only right. I mean, you provided a service, you should get paid. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people also think that I'm against Phil getting paid. I'm not against Phil getting paid. He should, if he works hard, he should get paid. I just think that he's not working as hard as he could be, in my opinion, just because it's been 30 years. And it's just been, the website's been the same. You just made a YouTube channel in 2021 or 2022. Your Instagram is 2 years old. Instagram and IG have been around for years.
Yeah.
So this is my opinion, is that, and I think that if they did that, this whole registry thing, it would take a lot off of Phil's chest. It would take a lot off of his plate, because then they would have millions of dollars to bring in real people.
It gives you more flexibility.
To more flexibility. You can hire people that have experience in this, or you could link with the AKC and ask them, or respond to one of my emails and I can show you how it's set up, how it goes. And then you can say, okay, well, hell yeah, I need this like 6 people. So that takes a lot of work. And hell, I was making $100,000 a year. Now I'm making $500,000 a year. I'm not against anybody getting the maximum benefits. You know what I mean? Like, you've got a great channel. I think you should get the maximum that YouTube can pay you. And, that's how I am. Like, you get paid for your work.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, in 30 years, the evolution, I don't see it. That's the issue. That's just the issue that I have with it. I really don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. I don't care. I care about the animals. You know what I mean? I've worked with people that I don't like. I was a chef for a while. I worked with chefs that I hated, but you know what? Those chefs were beasts. And that's why my cooking skills are above par now, from those guys that I did not like, but I looked and watched everything they did, because the point of it was for me to get my skills and go on to a better restaurant and show what I can do there, and then get those skills. And then eventually somebody would look at me and say, hey, I want to give you money to open up a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the evolution piece. Yeah.
That's how it should. That's what we should have seen, I believe, 15 years ago. So, I think a lot of what we see now with all this garbage going on, if that had have happened, we would not be seeing that at all. And I mean, I'm going to say not at all, but very minimum, because they would know that there's somebody there that's not messing around. You know what I mean? There's would know. Authority. Like, because you are the voice. So if you're the voice and you're saying we're going to be quiet we're going to pick and choose our battles. No, when you said you were the voice, it's like if I open up an abused women's shelter, but I pick and choose the women that I let in, but I'm the abused women's shelter, but she can't come in because she's not beat up enough. You know what I mean? You only got a black eye, lady. You go back home. So, let your husband uppercut you some more, and then you come back and we'll examine and see. But then this lady's like ears falling off, her eyes, like, you know what I mean? She can come in.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can't come in, and then 6 months later, that lady that I didn't let in is dead. That's reality. That happens all the time. not in that sense where they don't let people in, but some people they're scared to get the help, or they can't get the help for whatever reason, and then they end up in those situations.
Yeah,
unfortunately. And like I said, if we don't step up, I'm going to say we, but the animal communities in general need to come together, because we're all at risk, all of us,
Absolutely.
But the reptile community, they're as long as they're in denial, destruction is looming. And I don't care how many bills you beat. They're playing games with you. That's all this is. When they're ready to shut it down, it ain't going to be a bill. You know what I mean? It's going to be, it's over.
It's it. Yeah.
It's over. That's it. And we got your Instagram accounts with all your IP addresses, so we know where you live. So if we want to take it that far, they could easily pull a whole nother virus thing and be like, I think that what may be to happen is that this mysterious virus attacking animals comes out, and then then you're going to have to take your animals to get checked, and they're automatically going to be they're going to have it, and then they're going to take your animals. I mean, that's how I would do it. I'm like, why would I spend money, extra money to have them come into your home and take them? We're going to kill the animals anyway. You just bring them to your town square or such and such and such in your city. On these days, you bring them and we'll check them. Boop, boop, red, boop, red, red. Nobody gets a green.
Yeah. Well, we've seen these types of seizures happen. I mean, Spain was a good example, the government seizing animals. And so it's not out of the question that these types of things can happen. And like you said, there is in some sense like the big one that will come when things get banned across the board. And it's we want to have our ducks in the row to be able to respond to that.
Right. Well, Wales, I got homies in Wales that I talk to on a regular basis. And he told me, before you can even have the animal, they come in and check the enclosure and make sure everything is, the space and all that is right. And I'm not against that. But then you also have to think that when the time does come, then they definitely know what you have, because they've already been in your house. But I also do think that some of these facilities, and if this is, it can't be happening, because I've never known anyone. We have a small facility in California, and no one's ever come to check it out.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's something, if the FWC and USARK and whoever else were working together, as a community, then I do think that the FWC should come in and check animals, just to make sure that, because you have people, we know, like I said, they make memes about guys that they know keep animals and sell them poorly. And it's just a joke. So, but when I say something like what I just said, I'm the enemy. I'm the enemy of the state, because he just said he wants the FWC to come in and regulate. So you're fine with this person doing this to these animals, but then when he sends you a dead one, you got a problem with it.
Yeah.
Like, dude, knock it off. Grow up and be men and women.
Yeah, we can't pick and choose. I think that's the thing.
They got to grow up, man. They have to grow up, and that's the main reason I decided to exit. As far as, like I said, as far as the breeding and selling, like I talked to a few people if those people need help, but I'm not really, because I've been introduced to new reptile guides, and as soon as I say something they don't like, it's what I told you. I had a guy tell me my whole page was fake. The dogs weren't mine. The reptiles.
Pictures of you
fake.
With your dog.
Yeah, it's all fake. I photoshopped it. He said all that stuff to me. Yeah, everybody knows you're a liar. And I'm like, well, as everybody, do you mean just you? What I mean? Like, that's usually that's usually who everybody is. And, and he went on this rant, and he was part of USARK. And then I didn't even say anything bad about him. It was actually when I said that Morph Market was giving away $5,000. And I said, why not just give that money to USARK? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
That's a valid question. Why give it to someone if you've got this case against FWC out and you're giving away $5,000? I know you had him on. Maybe you'll ask him. Why are you giving away $5,000 for people to buy more animals with, when you have this huge case going on where they're asking for, I think somebody said like $1 million to fight it? Well, give them the $5,000. If I was Morph Market, I would have. I'm not going to give you money to go buy more animals when, 32 animals just got murdered. on camera, however that happened. I'm still confused about that, but this is our fault at the end of the day. It's our fault. It's all our fault. We started it. We don't want to self-regulate, and this is what we're dealing with. And we got to step up, be grown men and women, and accept the real responsibility. Like I said, until you can show me that the Burmese python got a passport, came over here with the chameleons, and the small community of king cobra that's still in Florida that no one can find, came over here on their own and colonize the Everglades. It's our fault.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the premise of this episode, is that the reptile community does need to take responsibility for things. And the more responsibility we take, the faster we can improve things, and we can show that we are an organization that deserves respect, and that we're not the Wild West. And a lot of times we come off as the Wild West. So
you'll get it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. You'll get it. If you do things, if you set things up, and I'm not saying my way, because it doesn't have to be my way. I mean, you have to have a similar foundation to what I'm saying, because registries work a certain way. Yeah. But in order to get out there and rah and talk this and talk that, then you, like you said, man, you got to be on point. You got to not only be ready to roll with the punches, but be able to fire back just as hard. And we're not able to fire back, because you got to beg people for donations. Every bill they're asked, donate to USARK. No, dude, give them a service.
Yes.
Give them a service that they need. Forget those donations, man. You're not going to get the money. You're never going to get the money you need when you got five. Look, it's just like this. You've got most people. So we'll take the entire canine community, right? Some of them have at least one reptile. I'd probably say 30% of all canine people have at least one reptile. I'd say 90% of the reptile communities have canines.
Yeah.
At least one. I just found out a guy that I've been talking to recently breeds Canis panthers. This is a dog that most people have never heard of. I didn't even know that he never posted a dog. So I didn't even know that he had dogs. I know another guy that's got Dogo Argentino. I know another reptile guy that just, had a litter of Presa Canario. So, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm only going to tell the facts. So having said that, then you can definitely get support from other communities, because they already have reptiles there.
They already understand.
You have dogs there. They know how the paperwork works, the dog people. If you don't, talk to them.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to take this, even though I'll say a little bit of it was kind of a bash. But, I mean, sometimes that's just what you got to do, man, to get your point across. Because I've been, I started off doing this almost 6 years ago, and I was real humble. I was real quiet, just trying to help out. And the more I got ignored, it's like a trash can. The more trash you put in it, you don't empty it, pretty soon your trash is everywhere. And, now everyone's mad at you because your trash is blowing this way, that way. So I was the trash being blown everywhere, because I'm the trash, because I'm saying what people don't want to say, or they, but they know what I'm saying is right. I got dissed by so many podcasts, 5.5, 6 years ago, for asking you literally the same way that I asked you. Later on, hey, I got this idea. I'd love to come and talk about it. Oh, isn't that what USARK does? I'm like, yeah, but I think that I can help them step it up. Whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or no, that's a great idea. Never get back to me. And that's happened with almost everyone. Then I had a couple people reach out to me after the first podcast that we did. One of those situations I told you about. That was a little odd, but then I had another guy reach out to me, and I did have a lot of monitor people reach out to me, and they were very interested in it. And I said, before I could really start taking money from you guys and printing paper, you're going to have to get more people from the community involved. Because otherwise it's going to be 5 of you over here, 6 of you over here, and in the boas, 8 of you over here paying me. And the whole purpose of this isn't just to register your animals. It's to get money to fight legislation.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm asking you to help. I'm not asking for a donation. I'm saying I'm going to give you this paperwork, and I'm going to make it official. And then I'm going to show all these numbers to the insurance companies so I can get you working insurance. And then I'm going to do reptile shows like they do in Indonesia, like I just described, where we go in and you say you got the best ball pythons. This guy says he's got the best boas. Okay, well, let's have a show in every state, and then we'll have one big show, or the number one ball python in the world. I mean, that's how dog breeders make their money. That's how they're able to charge you those prices. I've got the number one Pomeranian in the world right now. Yeah, I need 20K.
Yeah.
You know, my dog beat out 200 other dogs to get here.
Yes.
Rather than just, yeah, so-and-so's animals are sick. Yeah, literally.
Literally have illness.
They're literally sick. Like, but, and you promote health, but you don't even see a lot of reptile guys even saying that they have healthy animals. I've seen it here and there when they say, I'm selling so-and-so. You don't see where, hey, we're selling, the healthiest animals, this, that, and the other. They've been health tested. I've seen a couple people do that, but not many, man.
It's rare.
We need that.
I think, like I said, I think this is one of those episodes which will cause some, I think at the very least, start conversation. And I think, there's a lot of people that support USARK, and I think that they have a function, especially with the legislation piece. But as you said, there's some more ideas that could grow and expand that organization that would help us and make us look better and address the sort of the shadows of our community that we tend to tuck under the rug, and they shouldn't be. So I think, you have some great ideas. I do think the registration, the structure, the insurance, it all really does make sense. So maybe somebody listening to this will take that as a lead and say, I'm going to do it.
Dude, if you really love USARK, you really want to support the mission that USARK does, and you really care about these animals, then you should be writing them, telling them like, hey, I just heard about this registry again, and he's right. The math does add up. We could be making hundreds, 100. Dude, if AKC registers, I've said this before, 168 breeds, and on average, you're paying about, let's just say $17. Actually, no, I'm going to say 25, because some people you have, so after you do your registration, you pay for your transfer ownership. I think it's like 15 or 20. Then you have the option to do third, fourth, fifth, and sixth generation pedigrees, and each one of those has a different price. And then you have litter registrations. I think the litter registration in total is about somewhere between $70 and $150, depending on how many puppies you have. Everyone is different, so don't quote me on those exact numbers. But if they registered, I think they registered like 150,000 French bulldogs on an average of $25. You do the math. That's millions of dollars off of one dog breed, 167 more to go. There's way more species of reptile and amphibians. Even if you did it at $5 an animal, you're going to make more than the AKC. Reptiles have way more babies than dogs ever will. So, and the way that we're bringing them in, pumping them out, and even putting paperwork on animals that have come overseas, and you can even take it to the farms and it can start there.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. So if you really care about the mission and these, email, like they tell you, email your senator. No, email USARK and say, yeah, we do need you guys to make a registry, and then you can get this money. And I would like to have papers. I would like to get insurance. I would like that show idea that guy was talking. If you really, that is what is going to keep you afloat.
Yeah.
You go down this path that you're going to end up like that submarine that went down to the Titanic. And, and I don't say that to make fun of those people, because there's some deeper stuff behind that. But, you got in that little bitty submarine versus the big submarines. That's what I'm saying. Don't think small, think big. Yeah. Those guys had enough money to get a real submarine to go down there. I mean, it's unfortunate what happened, but listen to the message behind what I'm saying, people. Think bigger, and you'll get bigger results. If you're going to think small, then don't complain.
Yeah.
Don't complain about this and don't complain about that. Don't run to GoFundMe. Don't do that, because you don't want insurance. So why should I help you? Why should I give you my rat money? Why should I give you the profit that I made off my reptiles because you didn't want insurance on your home, on your animals and your stuff? Why should I do that? It's about being, if you're responsible, then like I said, you wouldn't even have to ask, because you're gonna call Nationwide, State Farm, whoever, MetLife. Hey, I got such and such and such, and they're gonna say, yeah, and we'll cover you for this amount. What was it? Send this. However the process works, it's very simple. Like, people, you got to help yourselves. If you're not getting the desired results, like I think that whole FWC situation could have been avoided if there was the structure that we're sitting here talking about. They would have been too afraid to do something like that because they'd have been like, man, them guys don't play. So plus, and if USARK was moving like that, they could have had a representative in every state that has the same authority at certain times as the head, whoever it fill, the head that could have been there on site as well, that you would call. Like, hey, FWC's on the way over here. They said it was standard procedure that I need to call you to come and deal with this incident, as well. So then they could have been there as well. Well, like, hey, the law is this, the law is that. It's like putting personal liens on your stuff, which most people don't know about, and that's nothing to do with this, but in a way it does. But it would have had them shook. They would have thought twice before they went in there wanting to take anything. But then it also means that we got to be on point and within the guidelines that we agreed upon with the legislation. So you can't be keeping illegal stuff in your house. And I'm not saying that he was, I'm saying in general, you can't be keeping illegal stuff in your house. Then you're going to complain and then you get caught and now you're busted and now you're crying like, oh my God. And then the whole community is in denial. They don't care about the illegal stuff. They stepped on that guy's tarantula. You know what I mean? And it's like they took our job things in South Park. You know what I mean? Now everyone's in a rally. Killed his tarantula. Well, dude, he had 18 illegal cobras in there.
Yeah.
He wasn't even supposed to have them. Whatever. The tarantula.
Yes. Well, I think that's right. I think the tendency to not look, we do need to look into the shadows. And I think thinking bigger is a great message to wrap up on. So I think that's the premise of this whole episode is there's more potential here. We have a lot of passionate people about animals. Everybody here loves animals. So thinking bigger is the key. And maybe this episode will spark some people to really take this and run with it. So if for people that want to follow your canine content, where would they go do that?
You can go to the Canis Codex. So it's KANISKODEX. Actually, you should all know how to spell the. I hope so.
Yeah.
So you can find me there, or you can go to Dark Xilver, Canary Prey Dog Xilver with an X, not an S. And there's always links in the bio there. And you can come and if you're looking for like real factual, hardcore, raw canine information. Very selective on who I have come on to do interviews. I don't have a lot of interviews, but I do topics. I do interviews. I do reaction videos. I do breed profiles. I've got shorts up. So it's probably the most versatile canine channel out. I haven't seen anything like it, and I'm only 6 months, 6 months running in. And I've got a few hundred subscribers. I didn't think remember I used to like, man, Dylan, ain't nobody coming here. It's like, nah, dude, I remember when I had my first 30 subs and now I'm up to 350, 28 or 58 or something, one of those two numbers. Yeah. So I do appreciate the people that, are watching the channel. But yeah, you can find me at those two places. Hopefully I don't have to come back here next year and talk about this again. We can talk about something different.
Yeah. That's the goal.
But no, Dylan, as always, man, I appreciate you having me on. And I hope that more people, I've seen that your channel has jumped up over 1,000 followers since I was on last, and the last video that we got is over 5,000 hits.
Yeah.
So hopefully, this one will do double that. And maybe someone will show it to Phil, and he'll be like, what, we should do this. What he's saying is valid, because that's all this is about. Like I said, people, I've already said it. I was a supporter of USARK, but when I don't see things progress, I drop off. It's like I've worked in the kitchen. If I don't think I'm going to learn anything there, I'm going to roll my knives up and bounce and go to somewhere. You wouldn't stay somewhere that's not right for you. It wasn't right for me. Maybe if they start doing that stuff, then I'll come back to the reptile community full force. Yeah. But, until then, this is what it is. So if you need those good guard dogs,
go to Rain.
Let me know.
Awesome. Well, Rain, thank you very much. And like you said, we hopefully won't have to have this conversation again. We can talk about some other stuff. But
yes,
in the meantime, this was a great chat. I really enjoyed this. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Dylan.
All right. That is the end of that episode. Rain, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast and sharing your ideas. Like I said through the intro, I think we are in need of some more professionalism and some more organization within the herpetoculture community. I think that's obvious, and I know people are craving that. I do think organizations like USARK need more funds to work with, and the donor-based model may have hit. We may be at the end of that. Maybe we can't do any more with a donor-based model, and a service-based model might be the way forward in order to inject more money into organizations like that. And again, I do think discussing animal welfare, taking a stand against these really horrible examples of poor care is just vital for the overall professionalism of that organization, and it gives us more credibility when we're talking to the mainstream public. That is obviously one of the main issues with a donor-based organization, is that it sort of forces you to have ambiguous positions on things because you don't want to step on the toes or offend your donors. If you have a wide set of donors who have all different opinions, as soon as you make a claim about something, you may lose a third or half of your donor base, which is obviously bad for the organization. Then USARK wouldn't be able to go up and fight these legislative bills that are popping up. But at the end of the day, we are an animal keeping community, and the first step always needs to be do what's best for the animal, both captive and wild. To me, that is the paramount thing that we must be standing on top of. And so I think there's no excuse not to have a really well-defined example of how animals should be kept. I do think USARK should do a better job at speaking out against some of these practices that we know are outdated, like opaque rack keeping. These are things that we need to move away from in order to gain some professionalism. And I know this is a bit of a longer outro than I normally do. For those of you who are still listening, thank you so much. I just think that, this type of conversation needs to be fully fleshed out. And I want to clarify one of the things I mentioned at the end there was, because I think it kind of sounded like I was contradicting myself, and that was the example of the puppy mill not being associated with the AKC, so the American Kennel Club. When there's a horrible, egregious example of terrible dog care, what I mean by them not being associated with the AKC is that the AKC has a very strong stance against that type of behavior. So when we find so for example, if you and your neighbor both keep dogs and your neighbor gets busted for having horrible abhorrent dog care, no one else in your community thinks that you, because by virtue of keeping dogs, must also keep dogs in bad care. Nobody draws that line, but it happens in the reptile community all the time. If a reptile keeper gets busted for horrible care, that touches all of us. It poisons the well for everybody. Everybody who keeps reptiles all of a sudden gets thrown into that basket. And I do think that is because our organizations that are representing us are not doing a strong enough job at separating us from those individuals. The AKC there's no place for that type of dog care in the AKC's philosophy, which means when it happens, they're happy to stand up, speak out against it, and it doesn't poison the rest of us. And I think that is what's happening right now. One bad apple really causes the entire basket to rot in our community, where you don't see the same in the horse keeping community and the dog keeping community. So anyway, as always, animals' welfare must be first. And I think that is the point, that is the main takeaway for this episode. And I do think shifting to more of a service-based organization is going to be paramount as far as allowing us to generate more money, more professionalism, more organization, something that we can bring to the table to the non-reptile keeping community to show that we are here for the animals, but professional and want what's best for everybody, and not just fighting for the right to fight, which I think is a very dangerous position to start from. So anyway, hopefully that rant made some sense. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Rain, thank you for being a guest again. If you did enjoy this, make sure you share it on social media. Again, I think this podcast should start some conversation, so please share it around. I think that would be useful. If you're looking for more information on the podcast, head to animalsathome.network.com. If you would like to join us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/animalsathome. And as always, thank you so much to Custom Reptile Habitats for sponsoring the podcast. If you're looking for any good, solid, premium reptile equipment, head to the links in either the show notes or the YouTube description. That is an affiliate link, so if you do make a purchase, a commission comes back to me at no extra cost to you. And that is it. I will see you guys in the next episode.